it's just you.
Piss off, fat man. It's called breaking and entering.
No, I'm just looking for Bomb. He's been such a good little boy this year.
Bomb's a 30-year-old man-child.
Just the same, I came to bring him wonderful gifts for Christmas for being on my nice list.
Knock it off, Bomb.
Bomb? No, me? No, I'm Santa Claus.
Who's that?
I'm a magical character originating from the Western Christian mythological generalization efforts to give meaning to the birth of their savior, Jesus Christ, to the general public in an attempt to trick the masses into converting to Catholicism by celebrating their holidays through a branded propaganda mascot. Me!
Didn't historians prove that Jesus' actual birthday was around September?
Oh, right, that. Well, the ancient Catholics intentionally moved the date to align with the pagan celebrations of the time, namely the winter solstice, in an attempt to trick the local heathens into accidentally celebrating the birth of Jesus.
Didn't historians also discover that Jesus was among many other dozens of self-proclaimed street-peddling messiahs of the time, but was unlikely to actually be the one credited with performing his own supposed miracles?
Oh, come now, Hamster, this is why you're always on my naughty list.
The real guy was named Apollonius of Tyana. Look it up.
But Santa, I'm not really associated with the Christian religion any longer.
Right, you're just an icon for corporate greed, exploiting a pretend Hallmark holiday to rake in the maximum fourth quarter earnings and manipulate the stock market.
Oh, you make my job so difficult.
You literally work one night a year, leaving the rest to your enslaved elf army.
That's it! I'll give you one last chance to get on the nice list, but you've got to buckle down and play a nice Christmas game for a change.
Maybe?
Come on, it's Christmas Eve! Surely there's something you know that'll bring out that Christmas jolly good spirit in your cold black heart.
Eve. Actually, yeah.
Wait, really? Oh, I knew you had the spirit of Christmas in you all along.
Parasite Eve.
What the hell is that?
Parasite Eve for the PS1 is an action horror RPG made by Squaresoft in 1998, known for its real-time combat and incredibly gory cinematic cutscenes.
Jesus Christ, I asked you to play a Christmas game!
It is, Lard Balloon! It begins in the middle of New York City on a chilly Christmas Eve.
Oh, that doesn't sound too bad.
Where an entire opera house full of people spontaneously combust in flames, while another bleeds out of their eyes until they completely liquefy into a single sentient sludge monster.
Jesus Apollonius of Tyana!
You know, that's probably what you would look like too after flying a sleigh faster than the speed of light to reach every house in the world on Christmas Eve, if it was even physically possible.
I use my Christmas magic and exploit some time zones.
So you're secretly packing the ability to time travel and you're selfishly using it to deliver gifts to only the people you like?
Stop making me the bad guy.
You're founded on fabrication, deception, and greed. Of course you're the bad guy.
But what about St. Nicholas?
Aren't you the same guy?
No. He comes on December 6th. Completely different person.
Parasite Eve is an odd horror action RPG, being a sequel to a novel of the same title by Hideaki Senna, but made entirely without his permission.
But stealing is wrong!
So it's okay when fans do it, but when a big publisher does it, it's wrong?
You're a real nutcracker, aren't you?
So, in Parasite Eve, you play as Aya Brea.
Isn't it pronounced Aya Brea? Player?
From a third-person fixed-camera perspective akin to the Resident Evil games of the time, where you'll explore various environments, gather and upgrade weapons, and fight off random encounters and grotesque boss monsters.
But weapons are bad. You might hurt someone.
So you'll find all sorts of guns across the city, and luckily ammo is not really a thing, so shoot to your heart's content. However, even though a potential biological apocalypse is at stake, your law enforcement overlords refuse to hand over the good stuff unless you've got the right paperwork, even when it comes down to you and only you to save the city.
It's always cool to follow the rules.
Aya also has access to her unique parasite energy through a corneal transplant from a mutated host or something.
Oh, I got LASIK last year.
That's nice. So Aya can basically cast magic with it, like healing, stat buffs, and offensive blast attacks as the gauge recharges over time.
Don't be silly. There's no such thing as magic.
But the cool part about the gameplay is in how the random encounters work. Each zone of the map has hotspots that can trigger an encounter with enemies, but the more you grind, the more you lower that hotspot's chances of more encounters. However, you'll never completely exhaust a hotspot, just make encounters extremely rare.
Santa, totally followed that.
Once you're in an encounter, Aya will have an ATB gauge ripped right from Final Fantasy in order to issue commands. However, she and the enemies are all free roaming around the environment during this time, giving everyone the chance to dodge attacks or getting close for critical hits. And it's actually really cool.
Santa's just happy you're happy.
Aside from the experience you'll acquire after defeating enemies, you'll also be rewarded with bonus points upon level up, allowing Aya to customize her attributes to enhance, like weapons and armor buffs or ATB and item capacity increases. Actually, this game is sounding a lot like Xenoblade on the PS1, but with Resident Evil mashed in.
So where's the Christmas stuff come in?
One annoying thing is that your guns all have range, and even though you can shoot something 10 feet away from you, the bullet will somehow do tremendously less damage than if you were right on top of them. I get the shot missing had Aya not been a trained police officer, but she is! And her piddly airsoft guns have the range and damage of a spitball.
Guns are bad, kids, especially those recalled airsoft guns kids kept painting black and getting immediately swarmed by police and filled with more holes than BOGO Day at Dunkin' Donuts.
Trust me, the guns should be the least of your concerns. Aside from this being one of the best looking PS1 games in terms of its cinematics, the game is one of the most unrelentingly gruesome creations I've ever seen.
Look! A Christmas tree!
Sure, the camera angles and pixely grain of the in-game graphics can make some segments confusing. You'll totally forget all that stuff though when the game hits you with its frequent pre-rendered cutscenes, filling out both discs of this otherwise comfortably short game.
I found it! I found it!
Undeniably a Christmas game, right, Big Red?
Well, I wouldn't exactly go that far.
Too late, Tubby, you're in for the long haul now.
Oh, holy night.
Now let's all cozy on up to the fire and prepare for a real Christmas story. I'm gonna make the bold assumption that you've either already played Parasite Eve or never will, considering it's a PS1 game from '98, and so we're gonna forego that spoiler skip.
As much as you keep asking for it for Christmas, my indentured servants can't convince Square Enix to bring this game back into production. They say kids these days aren't playing a PS1 or something.
However, the game was included on the PlayStation Classic, but only in Japan.
Then how did you play it?
So, Aya Brea is a rookie New York City cop, out on a date at Carnegie Hall on Christmas Eve to watch an opera where mid-performance some of the cast members suddenly catch fire.
It's one of these shows.
Well, some spectators think it's part of the show, until they all light on fire as well, running, burning, and screaming, trying to escape the theater in flames. Well, all except for the lead singer Melissa and Aya watching from the audience.
Santa doesn't know what an opera is that normal?
That's usually how it goes down, yeah.
That'll roast your chestnuts!
Ignoring the fact that her boyfriend just burned to death, Aya confronts Maya on stage after fighting her way through the hall of burning bodies and transforming creatures like rats evolving rapidly into demonic fleshy hellspawns.
If her date's alive by the end, just know Santa totally called that.
Nah, he's dead. So once Aya reaches Melissa backstage, she tells Aya her mitochondria are different than everyone else's, and she needs time to evolve. Melissa then transforms into a monster herself, claims her name is actually Eve, and flees off into the city sewers.
Why is it always the sewers? Santa swears every game inevitably ends up in the sewer eventually, but name one person you know that has actually been in one.
I have.
Huh? Oh, well, that explains a lot.
Go suck your insulin, Tubbo, I was talking. And this ends the first of 6 nights, making day 2 Christmas.
Yay!
Where another huge audience gathers in Central Park to watch Melissa, or rather Eve's, next performance.
Yeah. Wait, why would they do that?
Because it's 1997 and they don't have cell phones.
Cro-Magnon dimwits?
You're from like 300 AD.
I didn't say I knew what a cell phone was.
So Christmas goes about as well as you'd expect. Aya can't make it through the park infested with deformed evolutionary abominations in time to stop the performance, where Eve forces every living participant to bleed through their eyes and gush gory slime until they all coagulate into a massive carrion sludge monster.
Ew.
So Aya battles the fleeing Eve on a flaming horse-drawn carriage, and the city collectively decides that 2 incidents of mass homicide alongside countless rampant violent mutations makes New York uninhabitable, and everyone frantically evacuates Manhattan.
Yeah, I'd say that was a good move.
So the next day, Aya meets up with what stragglers remain of her pathetic police force after most all of them basically burned alive, alongside Maeda, a dorky Japanese doctor who aims to help Aya discover the truth about Eve's origin and how to stop her before she destroys all life on Earth.
We should probably do whatever the strange doctor does and not question it.
He insists we storm a sperm bank.
I guess it's gonna be a white Christmas.
Long story short, Eve is a consciousness of an ancient line of evolving sentient mitochondria that has eradicated all life on the planet in the distant past. Due to the mitochondria's dominance over all life with its energy regulation, the evolved and now sentient Eve can manipulate all of her cellular brethren to turn on their hosts and either mutate or ignite them like a parasite taking control.
Oh, all those years of watching Bill Nye the Science Guy are about to pay off. Now, what did he always say again?
Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Hold up, why does this Japanese dude need so much spunk?
Well, Maeda believes that Eve's goal is to give birth to the ultimate being and needs all the semen it can get its dirty little hands on to do it.
That's not how sex works!
So as expected, Aya arrives too late as Eve makes off with the jizz, aided by the giant hulking glob of sentient human slime from before. Aya chases her through the Museum of Natural History before Eve seals herself off from the world inside an impenetrable carrion cocoon she's formed in the wreckage of the Statue of Liberty as she gestates her unborn abomination.
Though not ideal, this is a lovely Christmas tour of the Big Apple, don't you think?
This whole time, the government has tried air raids, fighter jets, and even a freaking nuke to destroy Eve, but absolutely nothing ever bears any fruit, until they finally buckle down and realize that Aya is the only one immune to Eve's spontaneous combustion thing, and send her in alone to the site of the postulating wreckage.
You'd figure the Japanese would have a better understanding of what a nuke does.
Santa!
Well, at least they finally send her in fully equipped to Rambo this mofo, right?
Yeah, of course not. So Aya has to defeat Eve the old-fashioned way with whatever junk she gathered along the way. She gets no battle armor, no weapons, no health packs, nothing.
She's one tough Christmas cookie.
So she defeats Eve and all 12 people still alive in the city celebrate on a naval vessel. But it's not over yet, as the ultimate being is somehow stillborn from the goo puddle.
Christmas baby! Oh, she's beautiful.
Yeah, and she has 4 forms that you need to defeat in one run, and then outrun in an escape sequence where it'll insta-kill you if you so much as think about going the wrong direction in this vessel you've never seen before.
That's not cool.
They even tease you with a telephone to save along the way, but stopping to use it is certain death, making you rebattle the 4 phases all over again.
That's naughty.
So Aya sets the boiler to explode and manages to escape the ship before it blows, taking the ultimate being out with it Mission Impossible style.
Well, I'm sure we all learned a valuable Christmas lesson.
As in, Aya and her few surviving compatriots go to an opera house at Carnegie Hall again, just to test their PTSD.
Oh, don't be silly. I'm sure that won't happen a third time.
Nope. Aya and the entire auditorium's eyes begin to glow as Aya's own parasitical mitochondria begin to evolve beyond her control. Fade to black. The end.
That's not very Christmassy.
Well, sure, you could go for the true ending, where you fight your way through the Chrysler building and purge Eve from your dead sister Maya, who was the donor of the kidney to Melissa and a cornea to Aya after she passed away.
God damn, this game's messed up.
Well, it explains why Aya never burned and why Melissa, the opera singer on immune suppressants, was the one to go ballistic, considering how they both carried the DNA of the purebred mitochondrial super being without knowing it. Had that happenstance transplant never occurred, the entire world would have been completely incinerated by Eve's power, leaving no hope of resistance whatsoever, as every living thing's mitochondria would violently rebel against them.
Holy shit!
This soundtrack is outstanding! When it actually decides to play it.
Oh, now what do you mean?
Isn't that annoying?
Why would you do that? I pee when I'm scared.
Isn't it annoying that a conversation might suddenly end with no prompt whatsoever, that you're no longer talking, but instead in live gameplay? Not even idle animations?
Yes, I know too well what that's like. Well, with the missus and her dementia and all. Last week we were talking about my favorite Christmas cookies when she suddenly froze up like a reindeer in the fog lights, like she didn't even recognize old Santa. You know how hurtful it is when someone you know very well just doesn't even recognize you anymore. Oh, it's something else. I wouldn't even wish it on the Easter Bunny.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
At least she still knows how to polish my jingle bells just right.
Too much information, Cream Puff. I hate Christmas.
Santa rates Parasite Eve with a 6 out of 10. It's good holly jolly time on the PSX with some lights and Christmas trees every once in a while. But all that other stuff kinda takes my holiday spirit away. It doesn't help that the game sorta aged about as well as Mrs. Claus's secret milk, if you know what I'm saying. Now, would you like to add $5 to your order and receive free Christmas cards?
Shut up!
Oh, but I didn't even get to plug my rewards program and Etsy page!
The critical gamer in me found Parasite Eve to be a festive 8 out of 10. It's a fascinatingly gory Resident Evil meets Xenoblade combat, and definitely stands out amongst the competition of the time with its great graphics, gameplay, and whacked out story.
But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Parasite Eve in the comments below.
But if you don't think Aya saved Christmas,
You know, when you put it like that.
then you're just playing with yourself. Fine. Final Fantasy X is in many ways known and loved similarly to FF7, being the first in the series on a new PlayStation of the time, and taking full advantage of that cutting-edge software. While Final Fantasy VII showed off the 3D graphical potential of the PSX, FF10 blew everybody away with full voice acting on top of the frequent pre-rendered cutscenes. Yeah, we kinda neglected the Final Fantasy series up to this point outside of the FF7 remake episode. Now, after recently wrapping up several series in Season 10, we can finally dive in headfirst into one of the biggest franchises in gaming. Guess this is just as good a place to start as any, considering it was many PS2 owners' first Final Fantasy, on top of the fact that the PS2 is still the best-selling video game console to date. If it were just a popularity contest, Final Fantasy X kinda has a leg up there. It's not just about numbers though. This game's highly regarded for its great graphics, music, unique gameplay, and of course its story. It also seems to be particularly huge with its female fans. Wait a second, but we're playing the FF10 remaster build with 10 too, so shouldn't we also—
No!
FF10 is everything you'd expect from the 10th supposed Final Fantasy, with turn-based RPG battles with magic sorcerers, powerful summons, and monsters spread out over the course of a massive, colorful fantasy world. However, FF10 strays from the norm in some interesting ways, without compromising its established formula. For one, instead of relying on active time battle, or ATB, to determine when players and monsters act, the game visualizes the turn order system based on everyone's stats and current buffs, making strategy over quick thinking the name of the game. Another big change came in the form of the sphere grid system, where every character shared one massive skill tree where they could spend their earned points from battle and customize their stats and abilities. However, to increase character individuality, they all start at different points on the same sphere grid and must work their way toward the skills and abilities that interest them the most, though still kind of makes it possible to turn anyone into anything. Each character also gets a supercharged overdrive attack akin to a limit break, where they can unleash their own flavor of hell after building up their own gauge. This is true for everyone except Yuna, who utilizes her training as a summoner to call upon various Aeons into battle. The party unites under Yuna and aids her on her journey across the vast world of Spira to assemble more Aeons and eventually challenge the overwhelming power of Sin, a disastrous ethereal calamity, or die trying. And as open as that sounds, the game's actually quite linear, questing around the world like connect the dots, which isn't really a problem unless you find yourself trapped by the plot in front of a huge boss, unable to backtrack and better prepare yourself. Luckily, you can always grind, but since the sphere grid replaces traditional XP, this can feel especially hopeless if you haven't been upgrading your characters optimally. Yeah, it's actually pretty hard, but that's what makes the sphere grid system so rewarding, since you're the one who completely built your character, and by the end game, you'll be so supercharged with power that nothing will stand in your way. Oh, and a lot of those dungeons have some of the most irritating puzzles I've ever dealt with, and this thing didn't even fix how frustrating some of those freaking temples got! Ah, come on man, just relax and play some blitzball. How come the laws of physics cease to apply underwater? Is it really so that people can play water Quidditch without needing to breathe in giant liquid spheres? Yes! And never mind, I'll just take the summon hunting. Sports ball! This is the first Final Fantasy with fully modeled 3D backgrounds to explore. The PSX trio all tried to utilize pre-rendered backgrounds with preset camera angles to get around this, which worked, but we all kind of knew it wasn't the real deal. Even if they tried, the disc case would have been the size of a refrigerator. Switch to disc 2. Ooh, switch to disc 3. Ooh, switch to disc. These cutscenes are so cool and well made, it's a wonder how many of them they managed to cram on a single PS2 disc. Switch to disc 7. Oh. Switch to disc 8. And that's ignoring the fact that this game came out in the Brown era, where games all seem to have this gross, muddy tint to make them look realistic and hide the imperfections. But instead, FF10 looks like a beautiful, full-color marvel. I'd say Square was ahead of their time, but FF12 hopped on that brown bandwagon like it wasn't invited to the birthday party, so it just threw its own to compromise. Switch to disc 15. And there's the character and tribal creature design. Granted, Seymour looks like an inbred Hercules beetle, but the main cast looks so great and unique, like Brain Damage Wario, Magical Girl, Rurouni Kenshin, Cat Unicorn, Surfer Racist, Belts, and Dumb Blonde.
Switch to disc 22. Switch to disc 23. Switch to disc 24. Switch to disc 25.
Are you done making fun of the PS1? Hey, come on, I almost got to the title screen! This bumbling doofus is Tidus, a famous blitzball player from the metropolitan city of Zanarkand, where he competes in a tournament in honor of his father who's been missing for 10 years. But he kinda hates his dad anyway, so whatevs. Tidus plays the sports ball thing for a while until a colossal wave of a monster attacks and destroys the entire city. We're still playing Final Fantasy, right? After Tidus awakens in a strange land known as Spira and has to slowly learn all of the language of the locals, one goddamn letter at a time, to acclimate to this new world, he soon meets up with Yuna, a summoner on a pilgrimage intent on defeating Sin, the monster that destroyed Zanarkand 1,000 years ago. Plot twist! Joining Yuna as bodyguard Mooks, the rest of the party just kinda gets dropped in your lap and off you go on Yuna's great quest. And you'll quickly begin to realize that even though your main character just freaking time traveled a millennia, Tidus isn't really the main character. Double plot twist! This is Yuna's story, as she copes with the heavy burden of becoming a powerful summoner like her father to eventually ward off Sin. However, she's also well aware that the final summoning rite will ultimately kill her, and even though she's marching forward to save everyone's lives, she's also assuredly marching toward her grave. Tidus is more like a bystander helping and watching Yuna complete her journey. The two of them also get kinda lovey-dovey, which is definitely gonna end well in a story about inevitable death. Well, yeah, as the world is obviously full of giant fantasy monsters that are all ironically the deceased people from Spira who weren't sent on by a summoner. So Yuna will need help cleansing the land of its monsters, as well as performing many sending rites so she can help alleviate this unending battle against Sin. Right, because the whole you die unsent, you become a monster thing is Sin's gig. If you're getting confused already, just know that I promise you that this gets way more complicated, so just don't ask any questions. So another weird thing Tidus notices about Spira is the religion of Yevon, ironically using a gesture for blitzball, as if it were somehow established from centuries of sports fanatics not paying attention during Sunday school. I made the mistake of asking questions, and I promise you the lore and Wikipedia pages run deep, my friend. Anyway, it's the Yevon guys who are making Yuna go on her pilgrimage. They even try to force her into marrying the local loveless walking hair gel display Seymour just because of his rank in Yevon. Though he doesn't really add up to anything in the story other than romantic drama, you do fight him quite a lot throughout the game for padding. This really is just a romance story told in a fantasy setting where two star-crossed lovers are kept at arm's length from each other because of religion and duty. If anything, it's sad watching the two of them go on a quest they both know will eventually fail and it's completely pointless and will only get them killed, but they still force a smile and try to laugh anyway. resulting in some hilarious out-of-context memes, I might add. Tidus would have absolutely nothing to do with this story were it not for the revelation that Sin is actually, somehow, Jecht, Tidus' missing father from the beginning. But we still hate him anyway, so whatevs. Yuna eventually decides to refuse the final summoning and challenge the Yevon god, holding the people trapped in this cursed cycle and attempt to kill Sin for good. But this also destroys the faith statues, holding the Dream Xanarkin together, resulting in the entire city, Tidus included, to vanish forever. Dream Xanarkin? Faith is dead. Just smile and nod. It's a really sad ending, with a twist of which character was going to die by the end, as Yuna addresses Spira, letting them know that their days of living in fear of sin and monsters are over, at the expense of the bumbling doofus she fell in love with along the way. Yeah, she mourns by becoming a flashy fighting pop idol alongside her besties.
No.
Ugh. I like it. It gets on my nerves at times. Full voice acting is amazing for the PS2. This is actually the first Final Fantasy where the soundtrack wasn't completely created by Nobuo Uematsu. Granted, the soundtrack is enormous, and trimming it down for this episode took me hours alone, but still, he's just one guy. It's also got some incredible vocal tracks, like the main theme, Suteki Dane, Isn't It Wonderful? And that wild screamo song, Otherworld, opens and closes the game, throwing off players who expected a magical medieval fantasy game, but instead found themselves watching sports and listening to this, like,
No, if you want it, another one awaits you. Don't you give up on it.
Not only is this remastered PS2 classic readily available on nearly all modern platforms, but it's also bundled with its remastered sequel, FF10-2, and its short post-game sequel, FF10-2 Last Mission, alongside a bonus cutscene connecting 10 and 10-2 Eternal Calm. No, just play 10. But it comes with all that other stuff!
No!
The positive gamer in me gives Final Fantasy X a 7 out of 10. Though I do think it's above average, I just personally don't hold any nostalgia for the game, although I do greatly respect it for what it is and for what it accomplished. Though I admit it's probably just because I'm a little butthurt about those stupid puzzles and difficulty spikes. The critical gamer in me found Final Fantasy X to be worthy enough of a 9 out of 10. Though the game has its snags, they don't hold back the monumental strides forward this game made in terms of experimentation and pushing the envelope forward in terms of what can be accomplished in a single video game, in spite of Seymour's hair. But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical side rate Final Fantasy X in the comments below. Happy New Year, folks, and be kind to everyone you share this world with in 2023. Unless you're as unapologetically racist as Waka. Then you're just playing with yourself. Damn Albeds.
Everyone can be your friend.
You wanna play what? Jeez, relax, it's just Ninja Gaiden! Are you insane? That's like the hardest game ever! Yes, I know, but what? But it's not 1988 anymore. It's 2023. Oh yeah, of course, still hard! Not if we can save state between levels. Well, okay, I guess you got a point there. And that's why this time we're gonna beat all 3. Yeah, that's reasonable. What? You heard me right. We're not just playing one Ninja Gaiden game, but the entire NES trilogy. And I guess the only way we're gonna survive is through copious amounts of save states. In the late 80s, Tecmo saw many games being tossed in the bargain bin and determined they must have all been too easy. Once players beat their games, they just tossed them. And this brought Tecmo to the conclusion to make their new games so hard that they couldn't possibly be beaten as easily as the rest. Kinda overcompensated a bit, don't you think? Yeah, these are widely considered to be the toughest games on the NES, right up there with Ghosts and Goblins and Zelda 2, both of which we've already reviewed and beaten. But those games are hard because of their jank controls and cryptic progression. Ninja Gaiden, on the other hand, is actually quite fair with great control and clear direction throughout. It's the relentless level design and cruel enemy placement that'll slowly wear you down to a bloody smear on the pavement. Yeah, now let's beat all 3. Why are we friends? Conceptually, Ninja Gaiden was inspired by Castlevania's level-based platformer action, so use that as a basis for gauging the gameplay style. Just add more pits, triple the amount of enemies, and triple their damage, because, Castlevania wasn't hard enough, right? Let's be fair here, unlike Castlevania, all enemies barring bosses will go down in a single hit, but they'll also respawn immediately in the first 2 games if you move the screen back over the spawn point, making clearing a path forward nearly impossible without the right gear. In 3, however, they fixed this problem, but overcompensated with outrageous enemy damage instead. But that was just with a localized version of Ninja Gaiden 3. I thought we were specifically given the dumbed-down version of NES games like Mario 2 and Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. But in this case, it was Japan who got the easier version, whereas the West got an insane difficulty spike for no reason! Make up your mind, Japan! Same thing happened to Castlevania 3, which I also beat in English against my better judgment. So anyway, also like in Castlevania, you'll slice candles, or whatever the heck these floating orb ball things are, and either collect magic points called Ninpo, or acquire a sub-weapon to be activated with up and B, spending the Ninpo. These weapons will save your life, and unless you're playing 3, you can't see what you're gonna get until you cut them open. Aside from the staple boomerang, throwing stars, and flame attacks, each game has its own unique upgrade. 1 gets this insanely OP spin slash, dealing damage every frame you do this jump and spin attack thing that utterly wrecks the boss fights, assuming you gathered enough Ninpo along the way to even use it. And 2 gets this incredible body double after image thing, where without spending any Ninpo, you automatically make up to 2 Ryu follow your movements behind you, who are impervious to attacks but can still deal damage themselves. The catch is you'll lose them upon death, but if you can manage it, they also wreck boss fights. Lastly, 3 gets a longer sword to attack with until death. I know that sounds really underwhelming, but I promise you this is probably the best of the 3, making it suddenly possible to clear areas to safely progress, defeating those trickily placed enemies and projectile-tossing jerks from afar instead of up close. Granted, you probably don't want to do that in 3 anyway. Yeah, cause also like in Castlevania, you'll be under a time limit, and it's pretty strict. But for some reason in 3 in particular, some later levels are so unbearably long that I swear to Jackie-O they are not possible to beat without halfway timing out through the level, taking an unfair death and respawning at the last checkpoint just to continue. Though it all sounds daunting, these games have some of the best controls on the console, up there with Mario 3 and Little Samson. And when you get in the groove, you'll feel absolutely invincible, like a ninja diving and slashing your way around through all sorts of goons and monsters. And instead of only wall kicking around in 1, 2 introduces wall climbing, and 3 allows Ryo to climb ledges and monkey bar climb. And by now you probably noticed the giant enemy health bar, and if you guessed that's another relic of Castlevania, then you'd be right. It's just the boss's health bar, there to intimidate you as you struggle to even approach them at all, as the insurmountable hazards whittle you down all the way there. So for the most part, these bosses are surprisingly manageable. Most will only take you a few tries to figure out and master, but it's the final bosses that'll really twist your testicles. Or ovaries. Or ovaries. The final boss of 1 is Jackie-O, but in 3 phases. The first is suspiciously simple, slashing away at a stationary orb while his puppet dude tries to stop you. The second form looks easy at first, but is insanely hard in practice. You face Jackie-O moving back and forth on the ceiling, shooting auto-targeting fireballs at you. And the final phase is the most insane. You challenge a massive demon hellspawn, and after severing its invincible head, you'll be able to leap into the belly and chip away at its massive health bar, dodging the shrimpy spurting acid blood from its neck until death. His, not yours, hopefully. Yeah, cause if you die here, you go all the way back to the beginning of stage 6-1. And to make matters worse, your health won't be refilled between phases anymore like the first time once you make it back to them. So you're honestly better off starting the entire game over again if you have any hope of success. And it only gets worse from here. In 2, your final battle is once again against Jackie-O flying around the room shooting fireballs at you, then a horrid demon that basically attacks you with random dripping poison and fireballs all around the room, and ultimately you'll face a resurrected demon that you'll have to defeat a lot like last time. But the catch is, even on your first attempt, your health remains the same throughout all 3 boss battles. And if you die, you're sent back to the beginning of 7-2. So granted, after a continue, you get to bypass any of the bosses you previously defeated, but still! And God help you on the acid drippy room if you don't have an after image power-up. And finally in 3, you fight this mecha spaceman guy who just got the TM for Thunderbolt and really wants to show it off. And then you battle an incredibly annoying demon with auto-targeting flames. And finally, Dr. Wily's giant spaceship or something. And you guessed it, no heals between bosses. And if you die, you're hurled all the way back to the beginning of stage 7. No kidding, these games have some of the most cruel punishments for final bosses I've ever seen. They're so obnoxious, I'd recommend save states between the phases if you even can, just to allow yourself a chance to practice them all. Don't get too save state happy or anything though. That timer once locked me into a doomed boss fight where I had no choice but to take the death and start the level all over again. So I think we said it enough times. Can we all just accept that Ninja Gaiden is just Castlevania but with cyberpunk ninjas? If you replace all the generic haunty house spooks with pissed off dudes with machine guns, pumpkin-headed hammer brothers, and freaking birds that swoop in and deal 4 to 6 damage in a single hit, then yeah, they're basically the same game. On second thought, you can't fall through the stairs. What stairs? Yeah, with all the death pits, I forgot you gotta parkour around them all instead. Real ninjas don't need no stairs. Okay, so let's just pretend it's the late 80s, and this is your best example of a cutscene. And then all of a sudden, you boot up Ninja Gaiden, and you're met with this. Man, if that doesn't blow your cartridge just right, nothing does. Ninja Gaiden is well known for being the progenitor of cutscenes in video games, turning an action game into an intense cinematic experience. And then there's this fluid sprite work, dynamic parallaxing, and multi-directional screen scrolling. Seriously, this game graphically blew everybody else out of the water. Keep in mind, the NES was very limited with color and programming limitations, and I have absolutely no clue how this game even functions, much less looks this stellar. Man, I love that one shot where Ryu finally discovers Dracula's castle. Oh, how about when he saves Maria and watches it all crumble away in the distance? Yes, we're just messing with you. You'd think an NES game wouldn't have much story. But holy crap, these games are even kookier than Kingdom Hearts! Nothing is more convoluted than Kingdom Hearts. Okay then, wise guy, just try and explain all this nonsense. Sure. So the first game begins with Ryu receiving a note from his father telling him to seek out a nondescript Walter Smith if he doesn't return from a duel. And after watching that opening cinematic, you probably know how well that duel goes for him. But then Ryu gets kidnapped by the CIA's Irene Liu, who ends up helping him and sending him off to find Walter with a demon statue? Yeah, because apparently Walter's an archaeologist and he's been studying these statues that, if combined with their other half, will resurrect the demon itself. Why did Ryu's dad just casually have this thing? So apparently the CIA have been tracking the whereabouts of these statues with the hopes of keeping the sorcerer dude known as the Jackio from summoning the demon, and instead of taking care of the problem themselves, the CIA head honcho Foster requests Ryu to stop Jackio for them. The CIA monitored this for years, and when it finally became a threat, they put it all in the back of the son of the guy who just got his ninja butt served to him by the bad guys? Huh? So eventually, Ryu discovers his father being controlled by Jackio's power, who sacrifices himself to save Ryu and allow him to even battle Jackio, and of course the resurrected demon, which he summons with the statues. After somehow surviving that gauntlet, Irene gets an order from Foster to kill Ryu and take the statues, as if she's gonna somehow solo this ninja dude who just murdered a literal demon, but whatever. And of course, since it's the end, she randomly gets lovey-dovey with Ryu for absolutely no reason other than the fact that they both have compatible sex organs. So next comes Ninja Gaiden 3. Hold on, what about 2? No, we're not there yet. What do you mean we're not there yet? Ryu is suddenly framed for the murder of Irene and investigates the real murderer, who turns out to be a CIA-engineered clone of himself called a Bionoid. Oh, 80s. Turns out Foster had Irene disposed of with the Bionoid because she found out about his creepy mecha-human abomination factory thing he's got going on, and due to his unexplained throbbing hate boner for Ryu, Foster pins the assassination on him to get away with it. But we did what he asked, right? Why does he hate us so much? So Ryu meets up with Clancy, Foster's ex-partner, who helps him find Foster's hidden fortress, where he then meets up with Irene, who isn't really dead because you can't die in this series if you're important enough. How on earth did she survive this fall after being sliced off the edge of a cliff with a katana? So Ryu battles and destroys the Bionoid while Clancy backstabs the ninja, because that's just what everyone's natural reaction is anymore, by taking control of the fortress and diving through a trans-dimensional rift, killing Foster in the process. What? So apparently the CIA base was actually a super transdimensional warship that Clancy commands to reshape the world with mass genocide. Ryu doesn't really like the sound of that, so he decides to destroy Clancy in all his abominable forms, to destroy the entire base and watch another romantic sunset with Irene. And I thought Metal Gear was confusing. So then in Ninja Gaiden 2, what? Irene is kidnapped by an evil wizard dude named Ashtar. Why did they bother numbering the games if they don't even take place in order? So Ashtar likes all things evil, like stabbing people in the back and opening the gates to the demonic realm of chaos and leaving negative Metacritic scores for games he's never even played. Shouldn't players who beat 2 know that Irene couldn't possibly be dead at the beginning of 3, considering it's an in-between cool or something? Eventually, once Ryu defeats Ashtar, he still manages to open the realm of chaos to send his possessed sword, Ryu, and Irene into the literal pits of hell, where the thought-to-be-killed Jackio appears and takes up the sword to kill Ryu. Another sequence of brutal boss battle phases later, he's finally defeated for good, sending Ryu and Irene back to enjoy their third and final NES sunset together. I thought this was supposed to be about ninjas! You played as a ninja. That's all the game promised. So what was with all the demons and corrupt CIA guys and bio-whatsits? And I just gave you a quick summary too. Can you believe I actually skipped over most of the games? I believe that this was a complete waste of time, yes. Nobody played it for the story. Then why did you tell it all? Then why did you ask? Though the music is par for the course on the NES, the best parts are during the cinematic cutscenes with dramatic themes fitting the redonkulous plot twists and story beats. I really liked it all while playing, but I probably couldn't hum a thing from it except for the death jingle. Yeah, the trauma of hearing that puppy play 1,000,000 times will eventually take its toll on you. I like how in 3, Ryu goes "Hiya" when he swings his sword. What? Save states. Have no shame in saving between levels with these ancient artifacts if it means you'll actually play and enjoy them. You can also play the trilogy ported to the Super Nintendo, aptly named the Ninja Gaiden Trilogy. Though the cutscene graphics got a nice overhaul, a good amount of things were arbitrarily removed, like some parallaxing backgrounds, music, and blood. For all the parents who thought a game about ninjas wouldn't be violent. You can even play Ninja Gaiden 1 on NSO right now, and that's including rewind and save state functionality. Seriously, don't sleep on this opportunity before Nintendo inevitably yanks it away from us. Even if the games are above your skill level, at least treat yourself to an NES-style 80s action movie by watching all the cutscenes online. Go ahead, I won't judge. The Positive Gamer in me rates Ninja... are we just giving them all the same numbers? Yeah, sure. Ninja Gaiden Trilogy. Cool. The Ninja Gaiden Trilogy with a hard one, 9 out of 10. I'm not exaggerating in the slightest when I say that each of these games can be an absolute blast to play with modern saving capabilities. My personal favorite of the bunch being the third for its awesome game-changing improvements. The critical gamer in me sees enough value in the NES Ninja Gaiden Trilogy to give them a hard and fast 7 out of 10. Each one is a huge technical success held back by their intense difficulty. Critically, I'd have to say that the original is the best of the bunch due to its generally well-rounded quality. But what do you think? Let us know your positive and critical sides. Rate Ninja Gaiden and its whole trilogy on the NES in the comments below. These games were specifically made difficult to keep people playing and talking about them in the late 80s. And if you don't think that the fact that we're still doing so today is a testament to their success, then you're just playing with yourself. Hey, Hamster, you see the new episode request we got? The one about licensed games? Yeah, but they didn't even request a specific one, so I guess we're just gonna have to review every one we've ever played. What? Come on, you made me play all 3 Ninja Gaiden games last time. How does that even compare? Everybody's got their dark history of stupid, weird licensed games they've played and probably regretted. So let's lay it all out and review every single licensed game we've ever played in one big, horrendous video. But I had to have played dozens of... Fine, let's just narrow it down to the 50 weirdest games I've ever played going all the way back to my childhood. I can't believe we're doing this. And without further ado and appearing in whatever sporadic order they happen to be on my video game resume, let's begin. The only NES licensed game I've played was this odd Capcom platformer, but don't actually have any nostalgia for DuckTales, so don't hate me when I say it's just a 3 for me. DuckTales for NES is largely responsible for inspiring the pogo attacking and treasure collecting in Shovel Knight. For being so inspirational and ahead of its time, I gotta at least say it deserves a 5. Okay, yes, I know this game was made by world-renowned garbage factory LJN, but I promise it's actually pretty cool. It's a tense horror game that fits well in the world of Alien. Well, except for the fact that xenomorphs go down really easily. It's a 5, I suppose. So yeah, it's good because it's not as bad as the rest of the LJN games. Yeah, I ain't swallowing that pill. 4. Yeah, so Kim insisted I play this and experience what she did when she was younger, and ignoring the obvious Barbie theme, this game is ridiculously hard. It's nothing but a series of unfair auto-scrolling segments where any and everything in the world is out to kill you, and their hitboxes are astronomical. Then, if you somehow manage to survive, you gotta suffer through multiple egregiously mind-numbing dress-up memory games. The game sucked, but it gets a 2 at least for being really funny for how much it sucked. No, pure misogynistic misery. 1. So Kim picked out this Sailor Moon game for us to try, and unfortunately, it's just a crappy side-scrolling beat-em-up with the silliest-looking attacks, awful range, and lousy hitboxes you can imagine. Just imagine Streets of Rage, but with magical girls getting swarmed by uncomfortably dressed supermodel supervillains. 3. This game's a mess. Couldn't get far enough to find it any better than deserving a 2. Great Gundam sprite art in a 2D fighter. Too bad I suck at these kind of games. 4 for me. Yep, I suck at these, but some people really love this one. I'll give it a 5. Yeah, this is a super popular side-scroller beat-em-up and all, but I was never really a fan of the Ninja Turtles growing up, so the lack of nostalgia really hampers my enjoyment of the game. It'll take a tubular 2 with a slice of pizza, please. This is like the pinnacle of Turtles gaming, so it'd be wrong to not give this game a bodacious 6, brother. Kim had to remind me that I even played this old Genesis platformer a year or so ago at her request. I guess it's got really charming sprite work and animation, but I still, for the life of me, do not remember playing it, so that should tell you how memorable it was. 3. Licensed games aren't inherently bad or anything. I promise we will get to some of the heavy hitters later, but a lot of these older ones were just made en masse by corporations trying to cash in on the video game craze and milk their IPs dry regardless of the quality that they would put out. And parents just didn't know any better. Who would buy that weird blue hedgehog game for Genesis when there's Mickey Mouse? Oh, right, the game. 4, I guess. Why is Wolverine so easy to kill in video games? He chews through his mutant gauge just by keeping his claws out. The dude can regenerate like Deadpool in the comics, but as soon as he's in a video game, he goes down like Barbie trying to cross the street. Oh yeah, and there's other characters too. 4, I think. No, I was just talking about the playable characters, not the... There's better X-Men games out there, even though this one ironically takes the straightforward self-title for itself. X-Men. 3. Hey, look, a popular game! And don't hate me when I say that I absolutely suck at first-person games in general, but make me use the N64 controller on top of that and I automatically concede. 2. Please forgive me. I just cannot enjoy this one. Also, I never really cared much for James Bond. Yes, this game's a big deal. It's a lot of people's first ever first-person shooter, being accessible on home consoles. It's also as big as Doom or Half-Life in that regard, so it feels wrong not to give 007 anything less than the 7 he deserves. Oh boy, this game's horrible. It's so bad I actually felt like it might deserve a full-blown episode giving into meticulous detail of describing this abomination. But anymore just feels like I'm beating a dead horse. Heck, beating a live horse seems less horrible than playing this filth, because this horse in particular made you fly through rings for hours on end, gave you the worst flight controls imaginable, and laughed at you every single time you inevitably failed. 1. I actually reviewed this abomination back on Ocarina Hero, but for some masochistic reason, I actually went back and nearly beat the game, getting all the way to the Kryptonite Insta-Death Office level. Since this game's not worth any more of my time than it's already stolen, how about I just remaster that old crappy episode, give it a 1, and we all just move on with our lives. So get this, I actually played this game before I ever watched the movie because my parents messed up and bought this thinking this was the movie. So yeah, it kind of completely ruined the film, but hey, the dash levels were actually pretty amazing. Easily the best part of the game. I still to this day wish we got a 3D Sonic game inspired by those dash levels, all about maintaining momentum and zooming through crazy crowded environments. I'd give it an incredibly average 5. I remember this looking and playing really well, but holy crap, it didn't age well. And God, all the non-stop unfunny quips really grate on you. It's gotta be a 4 from me. I beat this game at least twice on the GameCube, and even dabbled in a bit of the rehydrated version. I'd still say it's a great 3D platformer with tons of references to the 90s show and the memes and all, but to me it's everything funny about old SpongeBob crushed down into a tiny little GameCube potato chip disc, and it deserves a solid 6 out of 10, even though rehydrated feels a little stale for some reason. Heck, you can even watch me play some on the channel, shameless plug. It's no Banjo-Kazooie, but I'm still gonna give the Sponge an average 5. Okay, this was my brother's game, and I think I played it more than he did. Imagine a GameCube Mario Odyssey, but with Looney Tunes characters and logic, where you play as Taz and destroy absolutely everything in your way to stop Yosemite Sam from capturing you and save your girlfriend thing? Anyway, the good memories from this oddball game have me scoring this varmint with another 6 out of 10. Yep, this game's got some jank, platforming is pretty wonky, cutscenes are poorly animated, and many areas feel unfairly rigged against you. I'm settling with a 3. I remember many long nights with a grade school friend of mine staying up way too late playing X-Men Legends. The fact that his parents let me keep coming back to his house countlessly over sleepless nights where I shouted and hollered all sorts of obnoxious teenage raillery and farm animal noises is a testament to their unmatchable tolerance. Oh yeah, the game. Yeah, I just kind of spammed Storm Tornadoes when I was in the corner and wanted to win, and just played as Iceman when I wanted to be a naked guy. 5, I guess. I, however, have nothing to say. 3. One of the easier movies to translate into a game for obvious reasons, but I genuinely don't remember much other than the free-roaming Radiator Springs areas, and intentionally utilizing a quick spin move, flipping you in reverse in order to send passers-by absolutely sailing! And with a well-timed spin and a steep ramp, you could freaking launch those sentient jalopies into the stratosphere! It's so satisfying and unintentionally the best part of the game. 6 out of 10. Ugh, it's basic racing, but your vehicle won't shut up. Pleasantly surprised by the all-time low music, though. Other than that, it's just a 3. Nothing special. But my brother, inspired by my Ocarina Hero game reviews of the time, actually made a video on this game and caught the car launching glitch on camera. So thanks for the clip, Taylor. Alright, for real now. Am I the only one who liked Cubics? Though I 100% admit the only appeal of the show was being fully animated in 3D. I do. I know. I had a bunch of the toys, like this million-piece Recall lawsuit in a box, so of course I tried the game, which was your basic top-down racer for Game Boy Color, but still enjoyable enough for a 5, I'd say. Instead of unlocking courses and stuff by winning races, you had to ignore the race entirely and look all over the map, driving into people's backyards and stuff to collect a random key, and then somehow finish the race in first. Also, top-down races kinda suck when you don't know where all the turns and traps are. I'm settling with another 3. I hate this game! Good thing this platformer crapfest didn't time you because it's got the most abysmal jump controls and level design imaginable. I spent hours just trying to figure out why sometimes when I jumped a dozen times trying to reach the next leaf or whatever, I'd fall short. But if I pressed really hard, I'd make it sometimes. I swear to God, this game's a nightmare! This stupid cannonball level alone made me want to piss on an anthill and light it on fire! 1. You think I got something nicer to say? 1. Squish 'em. Okay, the vast majority of these games were unrequited gifts, but this one I actually sought out myself. Not because of the gameplay or anything, I just wanted to play something Garfield on my GBA, because I ran out of Flash games on their website. What? This game actually sucks. Probably a 2 at best. No man, it's a 1. Look this trash up yourself if you don't believe me. But those cheap Flash games actually looked, sounded, and even played better than this travesty. It's just stock sound effects, terrible animation if you can even call it that, and silent Microsoft Paint slideshow screenshots for your cutscenes. Fitting for a game about a lazy slob. I never really liked Harry Potter, even before J.K. Rowling came out as an openly transphobic disgrace of a human being. I guess my parents just kept buying the books, movies, and even the games to try and encourage me to eventually read this entire box set of Little House on the Prairie novels that they bought, which is, to this day, still something I don't think I could ever stomach even if you paid me. Oh right, yeah, the game. It sucked. Boring as hell. 1. Just imagine running around and interacting with horribly drawn profile artwork and reading dialogue over and over again for hours. That's the whole game. It's just like reading the books, but even crappier. 1 is right. Okay, if you told me this game was just a modded Mario Kart Super Circuit, I'd believe you. Even the item items were all functionally the same thing, just with new graphics. To be fair though, they did get some 3D courses working pretty well in the GBA, which I've only ever seen done decently well in Banjo Pilot. So yeah, it's actually pretty fun, all things considered. I'd call it a solid 5. I'd call it a fun diversion after 100%ing Super Circuit, but for some reason I 100%ed this one as well. Kinda lame to have only one unlockable character, but hey, I wasn't expecting it to be Plankton. I'd give it a 4 for being an inferior clone. This was my sister's game, and she'd repeatedly get stuck and ask me for help in the game, like every 10 minutes. In the end, I basically played the entire thing for her, and she just flew around the hub world every once in a while. So yeah, I 100%ed a Powerpuff Girls game. And it wasn't too bad, honestly. 4. It was actually kind of unique, flying around the city, finding all sorts of hidden stuff, and doing side missions while swapping between the 3 mutant runts for health and powers. Also, I'm man enough to say I enjoyed myself some Powerpuff Girls, but not more than a 3. Yep, another Super Circuit clone, and this one's undoubtedly the worst of the knockoffs. It genuinely plays horribly, with awful clunky controls, hazards, obnoxious repetitive sound effects, and generally ugly graphics all around. But hey, it had Shrek, so at least it's a 3 from me. I also 100%ed it for no other reason than Super Circuit was so freaking good, even its crappy clones were decent. This GBA game soundtrack is 5 freaking tracks long, and what's worse is if you play it, you'd probably be asking yourself, where's the other 4? So yeah, it's an abysmal clone at best. 2. Weirdly enough, even though there were an uncomfortable amount of Shrek games back then, he wasn't the internet meme sensation yet, so this was just a weird, janky 3D fighter with dozens of broken items and infinite combos, but not in the fun way. I'd call it a 4 for being quirky and kinda unique for the DS, unlike most licensed games. This is another series I never expressed interest in, but my parents bought for me without asking what I'd actually like to play. I'd like to think I had better taste than this, but I sought out Garfield's Search for Pookie, so you be the judge. This game's a 3 on a good day. Hey, this time my parents knew I liked comics, so they actually tried this time. Too bad they didn't know I didn't give a damn about Marvel and DC's sorry attempts at quality storytelling. But still, Scribblenauts is an awesome game, and one deserving of an entire episode in its own right, but this DC exclusive version is just not interesting if you don't care for their IPs. I bounced off this hard, landing on a 2. I remember trying to create Watchmen and other Vertigo properties, considering it's all owned by DC, but to no avail. The only one that worked was when I got the wrong kind of Sandman. This one's a 3 from me. It's still functionally a Scribblenauts game, just with a ton of extra filling of flavors that I don't particularly care for. Seriously, the only superhero comic worth your time is Invincible, and don't believe anyone who tells you otherwise. Hey, look, another 2D Gundam fighter I don't particularly remember playing. Hey, look, a 4! Okay, this is some darn good sprite art and music. Am I alone in thinking that fighting games should stay sprite-based? Man, they look so good like this. I'd call this one a solid 6 for the variety. I should probably mention that Kim's the Gundam fan, and every single one of these games made the list because she insisted I play them with her. Yeah, my wife was playing Gundam while I was occupying my time with the real Robo MVP Cubix. Man, how is anyone gonna respect the nonsense I say when this video is making me lose faith in my own poor judgment? 4. Yeah, I'm gonna be an immediate hypocrite and say that if you're gonna make a 3D fighter, you better make it like Soul Calibur and have that 3D control and destructible environments like this one. But I'm still a sprite whore. You get a 5. Also, the voice deliveries are atrocious if you were wondering. Okay, when I imagine a Gundam game, this is what I'm talking about. Flying, shooting, and slashing giant mechs in a giant mech of my own! Why are we getting modern games like this that don't come without enormous caveats? Maybe because the game's just okay, all things considered? It's a 5, I guess? Kim loves it, though. Don't call me biased against Gundam just because I'm being honest here. Look, I even painted Green Gun Blastinator Man, piloted by Johnny Bravo? Hey, I know enough that this game is based off of a movie, adapted from an anime, based on real-world events in a galaxy far, far away. 5, I guess. Who the hell is this guy? Actually, it kind of looks like Heimdall from Xenogears. So this time, Kim handed me the Gundam game for entirely different reasons. She was terrible at it, considering it's suddenly a tactical strategy RPG where you play as and deploy a platoon of those Zaku mooks built out of paper mache. So I gave it a shot and was terrible at it as well. Couldn't give it over a 2 for sheer frustration. Yeah, this ain't my jam, cup of tea, or any other edible analogy. Rating it, however, is a piece of cake. 1. Basically Grand Theft Auto, but Simpsons themed. Something never really sat right with me watching Homer beat up random strangers in the street and run over kids in a playground with his car. I don't question it in GTA considering you're playing as a psychopath, but watching yellow cartoon people do it feels really wrong. I'd say it's a 3. It's a silly enough game for PS2 where luckily the graphical style ages well with the hardware. It's full of dumb humor as to be expected, and that's obviously the highlight of the game. I'm settling with a 4. Oh, hey! This game actually rules! It broke so many stereotypes of bad license games by being a blast to play, gorgeous to look at, and magnificent to listen to. It also helped that it was secretly a Metroidvania. But hey, it's a winning formula set in a madhouse full of supervillains. That's an 8 in my book. This game was so surprisingly good, Rocksteady would spend the next decade and a half desperately trying to milk the ever-loving crap out of this accidental diamond in the rough, bleeding it dry just like how the Bat's abusive papa does with his own comics. Biff, bam, slam, it's a 7. So, in some ways, the bigger open world map of Arkham City was better than Asylum, but just never really had that dreadful, creepy horror of being trapped on a manic island like before. Still a good time for fans of the first one, but it doesn't quite reach the same heights, even though you can send goons sailing off dizzying heights with their chests full of knives. Hey, if it doesn't hurt Batty's conscience, neither does this 7. This is tough because it's exactly what fans wanted after Asylum, but it's not quite as fulfilling. It's got too much filler like those stupid Riddler trophy puzzles and not enough cinematic set pieces like last time. At least the voice cast is still on point. Oh, and if you're wondering, this is the last of their games to pass quality control, so take this 6 and a smile knowing that I decided to stop here. Mobile Suit Gundam Extreme versus Full Boost? Yikes. And it doesn't help that it's got the worst cover I've ever seen in my life. I got this game for Kim considering it was the closest to the gameplay she wanted, but on the next-gen hardware. Unfortunately, it was never translated. So I'm gonna rate this bad boy in kanji, because gosh darn it, I got no damn idea what the heck is going on anymore. I assure you, we tried for quite a while trying to follow the guides to figure out how to play this game. Man, I feel for the poor Western Gundam community. This game looks incredible, but the language barrier is keeping it at arm's length. Just like my score. Deal with it. Mass reckless endangerment fell off in Simpsons, but not in Star Wars. I was very much an evil son of a gun, electrocuting random people before slicing them up with my glow stick. I'm giving Space Murder a decent 4 out of 10. I wonder if everything made by LucasArts is technically qualifying as a licensed game. George Lucas is Mr. Star Wars, but honestly my mind goes to Monkey Island first when I hear the name. Or whatever. I guess Force Unleashed was an average 5. Speaking of killing people, Telltale made an incredible spin-off game for the Walking Dead comics. This was the first game I played where your decisions had any real impact on the story, and man, those changes were substantial. Highly recommend giving this series a shot with an 8 out of 10. Somehow my PS3 considered my first playthrough of the first season deserving of a platinum trophy. I guess it was so depressed by the ending it refused to make me play it again with alternate choices. Well, I'm gonna give this Zambi game a solid 8 as well. We've established that I'm not much of a superhero guy, but wow, this game's incredible! I remember watching friends play Spider-Man 2 on GameCube, and this game's everything I thought was cool about that, but so much better! Swinging around the entirety of Manhattan is such a great rush, and it sure helped that the story was just as fun as the old spectacular Spider-Man cartoons. Spidey easily gets a 10 out of me. Yeah, swinging around is super fun and all, but the gameplay variety was what was really lacking. You take down groups of goons the exact same way every single time Arkham Asylum style, and it gets really repetitive after dozens of repetitive fights with the same generic nobodies on the same generic rooftops and intersections. Still pretty amazing work from Insomniac, snagging a 9 from me. Remember those old Jurassic Park arcade booths? You'd sit inside a curtained-off Jeep that would drive along a rail shooter level with constant dinosaurs coming after you? It really freaked me out when I was little, both for the House of the Dead style scares, but also feeling bad for shooting dinosaurs. Hey, it wasn't their fault that humanity brought them back from extinction, forgetting that they were the apex predators. It's probably a 6 for a unique experience. Hold on to your butts. I just think these games are meh. Compared to its competition, it's like a 4. My friends needed another player in this old arcade, so I ended up being Nightcrawler, aka the last picked character, and proudly made it to the point where Magneto yells, "Welcome to die!" Welcome to die! Other than that, I don't really remember anything, giving it a 4 for politely welcoming me to die. Never thought I'd have to rate all these throwaway titles I played as a kid. Compared to all the other arcades, I guess it was average, so 5? Are you satisfied? Man, are we there yet? Alien traditionally has horrible games, but this one's actually fantastic. It's an outstanding stealth horror game playing a canonical sequel to the film. However, I remember my friends and I dying a lot just because someone's phone rang or cat barfed or something and the alien heard us through the microphone and came and killed us. I'd give it a 7 for making my favorite movie a great game that can kill you if you so much as fart. Play this on Steam or something without a mic for your own good. Then you can enjoy the surprising game adaptation with a strong 9 out of 10. You all thought the ridiculous games were over, didn't you? Well, get this. I played this point-and-click adventure Finding Nemo game and was completely flabbergasted as a kid, hearing a different voice coming out of Bruce the Shark's mouth during the actual CG cutscene from the movie, when everyone else has their original voice actors. This anomaly perplexes me to this day. I'd say Finding Breakfast is a 3. It was something to do at best, and another bastardized film at worst. Imagine playing Freddy Fish, but he's ruining one of your favorite Pixar movies at the same time. 1. One of those horror movie adaptations where everyone kind of roleplays the victims and one's randomly the killer. The best moment I ever had with this game was when some guy was playing Jason would kick open the doors and blast All-Star from Smash Mouth through his microphone for everyone to hear. It was amazing. But the game was kind of jank. I'd call it a 5 at best. A frustrating, mic-sharing, connection-dropping mess. Jason can go jump in the lake and look for his 3 that's sunk to the bottom. Once again, I am not into Harry Potter. However, I was into card collecting, and this game had me covered in that regard. Also, it was fortunately an actual 3D game with puzzles and stuff to find all over. Decent enough for a 5 for me. Flipendo! 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 God, this game's freaking repetitive as Harry Nutsack has to call out his magic every single time he uses it, which is constant, as you'll need to 3 or so quintillion flipendos to collect all the stupid pentagonal card things. I'm settling on a 2 because it's based on the second book. Yeah, I stopped caring. I Love You, Colonel Sanders, a finger-licking good dating simulator, is exactly what you think it is from the ever-devolving KFC brand. It saddens me that gruel is what foreigners think our food is like here in Southern Ohio and Kentucky. You won't find a single sane human being who lives here and will tell you that KFC deserved the international success and Old Spice level ads of their own depravity and shameless desperation. Anyway, the game's funny, but not worth playing. I'd take a number 4, please. You can actually watch me play this glorified advertisement in a single streamed video shameless plug. So that way you don't have to do it all yourself just to see KFC make buffoons of themselves yet again. It really is amusing the first time, but sucks upon replay or reloading. It's a 2 at best. Sorry, but even though the concept of a dinosaur-themed zoo tycoon sounds awesome, making it licensed by Jurassic Park just gives me the inclination to let them frequently break out and wreak havoc and murder everybody at the first possible moment I can. So I guess it's a 6. Though personally, I'd invest my dino tycooning in Prehistoric Kingdom. People really love this game. Granted, the sequel kind of made it obsolete, I still think it deserves a ravenous 8. A Symphony of the Night imitation that's actually pretty darn fun. I played almost all of it on my channel as well, shameless plug, but I kind of fell off at the last boss considering how ridiculously hard it was. Turned out I missed a few areas and helpful pickups to make the fight a heck of a lot more balanced, so I went back and finished it up offline. Still, it was at least a 6 for unique gameplay alone. That unique gameplay was just Team Ladybug recycling their fire and ice mechanic they made in their mini Shin Megami Tensei Metroidvania project Synchronicity Prologue. And if you're not hip on the Lodos lingo, this story is gonna sail right over your head like it did mine. I'd give it a 4 in hindsight. Yet another point-and-click adventure from yet another franchise I never really cared for. Hey, at least there was replay value in that the culprits would change around based on the difficulty chosen. 2 out of 10. I guess it's a plus that the original voice cast reprised their roles. We don't see that much anymore. Even still, I can't go much higher than a 2 either. Okay, so this one's actually interesting. It's an isometric mystery investigation where you pick one of the cast members and race against the CPU controlling the others to solve the mystery first by finding traps, clues, and Scooby snacks lying around this creepy theme park at night, with everything kind of randomized and goofily animated cutscenes for setting the traps to catch each possible culprit made this pretty enjoyable, but not above a 4 enjoyable. Yeah, well, considering my options at the time were to play Scooby-Doo games or keep reading my Encyclopedia Britannica, this seemed like the sensible option for a 7-year-old. Can you blame me? I'm giving the Scoob a 4 as well. Yep, another one. And it's basically the same as Jinx at the Sphinx. Point and click around to play cheap flash minigames to collect clues and watch more low-budget cutscenes. I'll give this one a 3 just because there's a dragon on the cover. 2, moving on. Yeah, so this is the last point-and-click adventure Scooby-Doo game that came in a 3-pack. It's no different from the first two. No dragon on this cover, so it's a 2. 2! Now buzz off, you meddling kids! Oh my god, does anybody remember this? I spent so many hours scanning barcodes with this hokey peripheral thing in order to gather DNA or something for my 3D fighting dinosaurs on PC. It was really cool. It turned groceries into dinosaurs! Seriously, why don't kids get cool games like this anymore? Not even an app? I'm giving it a 6 just for the funsies. Sure, the barcode scanner was unique and all, but the actual gameplay itself was pretty horrible. It played like you were literally just yelling at 2 dinosaurs to kill each other, and it was just about as responsive as well. 2. Utter jank. So I have a confession to make. I never actually played this game. Wait, what? Why is it even on this list? Well, because I got it for free on the Epic Game Store, but couldn't really bring myself to play it. Why not? I hear it's pretty good. It's a game by EA, owned by Disney, and distributed by Epic, the Fortnite factory. That's like one musketeer short of the reuniting of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Crap, I didn't play it either for the same reason. What are we gonna do? You think people even made it this far in a video about licensed games? I say we just fake it. I got a D10 right here. Help me, RNG. You're my only hope. Or, who's more foolish, the fool or the one who follows him? 6. Hold up, aren't all the backyard sports games licensed too? Come on, give it up! Same for Witcher. Wait, what about Kingdom Hearts? No, we're done! Goodbye! So what kind of janked up licensed piss balloons have you played? Come on, spill it. I want to hear all about your embarrassing secrets in the comments this time. Blah, but if you're still gonna try and convince me that a game is bad just because it's licensed, you got a good point there. No. You're just playing with yourself. But you got a really good point there. I mean, do I smell another chance to talk about Dark Souls? Well, unless you're secretly one of our patrons, you got a peculiar set of olfactory glands. You mean I get to gush all over this series again on top of livestream, a deprived no gift run that you should all totally join me for, shameless plug? Actually, we're gonna be talking about Dark Souls 3. That's it! Wait, 3? Yes, 3. Isn't there another game you're skipping over that comes between Dark Souls and Dark Souls 3? Oh, yeah. No, we'll get to Bloodborne later. Alright, I got nothing against Dark Souls 2. Though I have heard it isn't as popular, that's not the reason we're jumping ahead. I just happened upon a copy of Dark Souls 3 in a used game store and couldn't resist. Can you blame me? I guess it kinda works out considering this was the director Hidetaka Miyazaki's return to the series after creating Bloodborne. Bamco was just a little too impatient for Dark Souls 2 and kinda hired new directors for the sequel, leaving Miyazaki to simply supervise the project. So yeah, Dark Souls 3 is a byproduct of Miyazaki reclaiming his director status as well as sprucing up or downright removing aspects of the sequel that he, as many of the other fans, didn't even like. But forget all that stuff, we're here to play a game! And another freaking challenging one at that. How can you possibly make a sequel to a masterpiece like Dark Souls? Let's see if this game is still burning strong or crumbling to ash. Metaphors! This game is incredible! Well, I mean, it's basically the first game again, but with a few caveats, which only makes it incredible. Have you ever seen Home Alone 2? It's like verbatim the first movie, plot points and all, happening all over again, but in New York. The first movie is still a classic, but the sequel is so obviously ripping itself off, it's hard to say the same about it, even though it's essentially the exact same movie. My favorite Christmas movie is It's a Wonderful Life. You idiot, I'm trying to make an analogy. Don't be such a Scrooge! Dark Souls 3, in almost every aspect, is Dark Souls 1 again, and that should be a great thing. But something about the little changes kind of bring it down a peg. Ah, come on, it's more Dark Souls! I was just thrilled the game was just as great as I'd hoped. Well, we're not getting anywhere discussing the similarities, so how's about we just cover the differences? Oh, you mean like how Firelink doesn't actually link to anything anymore? Exactly. You'll discover pretty early on that Firelink Shrine is simply your hub level with a shop, blacksmith, and occasional NPCs, and a firekeeper who is now responsible for leveling you up as you can no longer do it yourself at a bonfire. I don't understand why we're trying to fix what wasn't broken. Taking away my ability to level up from a bonfire doesn't make the game more challenging, it just makes me wait through more loading zones. It was a stupid idea in Bloodborne and it's a stupid idea here too. That aside, the bigger issue is how the game world is designed. You'll immediately run into a dead end at Firelink after facing your first boss, and you'll have nowhere to go unless you rest at that bonfire and warp away to the actual first area. That's so awful! The first first game prides itself on its open Metroidvania loading zone free exploration. Taking that away is unjustifiable. It does absolutely nothing good to the game but transform it into yet another linear pathway teleporting fast travel game. We didn't mention it, but you'll actually begin with the Lord Vessel ability to warp from the get-go. Not only does this completely destroy the world design potential, discouraging players to return and explore multiple pathways and environments thoroughly, but it's utterly sabotaging the whole point of bonfires. You'll also notice right away that the magic meter from Demon Souls makes a return, and you can choose to allot your Estus Flask to refill health or magic in any combination. But I didn't use magic on my first playthrough, so extra health for me! You'll actually acquire Estus Shards while exploring and turn them into new flasks at the smithy, so it's no longer based on bonfire kindling, which is totally fine considering we just sabotaged the bonfire mechanic anyways. Hey, it's more cool goodies to find scattered across the map to encourage exploration, so it gets my seal of approval. That aside, everything else is pretty finely polished. The enemies are various and challenging, areas are vast and interesting, and combat has been made even more fluid, and bosses are even bigger and stronger with new creative fighting styles and mechanics shaking up the variety. This pleases the seal of approval. I am still pretty disappointed with the lack of meaningfully interconnected areas, but we do get a few large secret ones. The problem is you'll need to discover one secret area and acquire some innocuous thing that'll unlock another area in a completely different nondescript location. Rinse repeat 3 or 4 times to find them all and fight all the bosses. The Nameless King awaits you at the end of this Illuminati scavenger hunt, and he's easily the hardest boss I've ever faced in the series. I genuinely thought I couldn't do it, but gosh darn it, I kept trying and buckled down and finally killed that toilet paper-haired freak. Nameless King barked up the wrong seal. This game looks outstanding. The new enemies and environments look and behave so lifelike that it's even more horrifying running into new threats. Would you stop with the seal thing? That's not even the right kind of seal. Except when the camera and wonky lock-on controls get you killed. This game looks great, moving on. So this is the big departure. The game's actually pretty straightforward with what you're supposed to be doing. Right there in Firelink, you can see 5 large thrones for the past Lords of Cinder, and you're told to bring those lords back, dead or alive, in order to relink the first flame once again. Luckily, one of the lords is totally willing to be burned alive and just kind of chills there in his chair waiting for the others to come home. Probably because the old man wouldn't stand a chance in a pillow fight, much less against an undead warrior, but hey, at least we don't have to hunt another one down. Gramps also converts your boss souls directly into new weapons and rings for you once you poke a giant tree monster to death, which is actually a wonderful change, as creating boss weapons before required maxing specific weapon classes first, without even knowing what the requirements were going to be. Now you can just kill a boss and go talk to the Candyman and see what prizes you've won! Anywho, that leaves 4 empty thrones and you're off to explore the land of Lothric to hunt those 4 ancient bozos down to perpetuate this age of fire. Thing is, Dark Souls prides itself on overcoming despair and hopelessness, so don't be shocked if you're 30 hours in and still haven't even found a single lord. Once again, the story is predominantly told through offhanded item description, lore entries, and such. However, much more so than before, there will be quite a few characters you'll meet and converse with along the way. Even the occasional boss will speak with you as you fight, like Revolver Ocelot's long-lost dragon dad. Eventually, you return all the lords to their respective thrones, or rather just their heads, but hey, whatever works. The Firekeeper lights their way to the first flame, where you challenge the final boss, who's become an amalgamation of all of the chosen undead who've relinked that fire in all of the ages since Lord Gwyn. The best part is that it's here where you're gonna discover that the character on the cover art wasn't you, but the final boss. Talk about hiding in plain sight. And of course we got our last second choose what flavor of bad ending you like from before, which is fine and all, but considering this game obviously comes after the linking of the fire ending in Dark Souls 1, I really hope we eventually get a game set after the events of a Dark Lord ending as well, considering that's my preferred narrative conclusion for Dark Souls 1. There is a lot of nostalgia pandering in this game, lots of revisited areas, familiar faces and such, and it kind of gets a little heavy-handed the more you explore and realize that Lothric is actually built upon the old land of Lordran, but I still kind of enjoyed it all nonetheless. Except calling this guy Sigward of Katarina, not to be confused with Sigmire of Katarina. That was just a personal attack on my dyslexia. And so was calling this guy Andre and this guy Andre. Wait, aren't they the same guy? Time itself in Lordran is literally falling apart with the first flame burning out, so who knows? You mean Lothric. Guess what? The soundtrack is just as amazing as last time. Well, it's certainly good, but I still kind of prefer the original to this. The Dancer of the Boreal Valley boss literally dances to her own music, slashing and spinning around the room as her footsteps echo through the halls. That's cool!
Really?
I never noticed. I was probably too busy freaking out that the game just threw me into yet another boss fight after I just got cutscened away from the last one. Oh, and when you're facing the Lord of Cinder and activate his second phase, the music and its fighting style begin to reflect Lord Gwyn's from the first game. Usually I hate pandering, but boy is that yummy. The physical game even came with this odd extra disc thing that ancient humans used to use to listen to music. Now, if only I had a CD drive. He makes these jokes, but I still have VHS's, cassette tapes, and floppy disks in my basement. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you through those dusty heaves, Ashen One. If you found Dark Souls 1 to be a little too challenging, then really, give this one a shot. Maybe it's just me, but I didn't have nearly as much trouble beating this game as I did the original. Though I beat all the bosses, I honestly had to look them all up again to research this video because most of them didn't even kill me once. Kind of a bummer, but hey, I still had a great time. Just think, you start with the ability to warp, making backtracking non-existent, always have access to a way to spend your souls with a shop, smithy, and firekeeper, on top of the fact that this game's got a clear direction on what you're supposed to be doing. I know for some people those are good things, but honestly they're what's hurting my rating in the end. Wait, what? You heard me, the first one's undeniably better. The positive gamer in me can't help but kindle a burning 10 out of 10 for Dark Souls 3. Sure, it's got a few drawbacks, but it's still every bit as fun to explore and overcome as the original. The critical gamer in me definitely has some problems with Dark Souls 3, but not enough to go below a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I spent a lot of time griping about this game in this episode, but remember that the foundation we're building off of here, I consider a masterpiece. And a masterpiece with a few blemishes is still a work of art. But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Dark Souls 3 in the comments below. But if you're still intimidated by this series when the quality of life version you wanted is right here, you're just playing with yourself. Hey Hamster, remember that early episode where we didn't even review a game? Ugh, that ranking Pokemon games episode? That was just an excuse to talk about a bunch of games at once. So how come it's a numbered episode of Playing With Myself when all the Pokemon opinion episodes don't count? Give me a break, it was episode 6! I was only beginning to figure out the series myself. It didn't even number the Smash Done Dirty episode. I love that one. Numbering that stupid rankings episode has become my biggest regret of this entire series. Stop rubbing it in. Nah, I say we call out how dumb that was and celebrate the stupidity by making another pointlessly numbered non-review episode. Why on earth would I ever agree to? Because it's been precisely 100 episodes since that faithfully mislabeled video, and it's the perfect time to basically do something totally unrelated to reviewing games again. Like what? You know, you also made a random non-game episode back in your early Ocarina Hero days. I did? And just like you did way back in 2008, we're gonna solve one of the biggest debates in video game history, uncovering the truth about the timeline of The Legend of Zelda. We're gonna what? In a numbered episode. I'm haunted by endless ghosts of my own creation. Well, if we must do this, I actually was once regarded as one of the biggest names online in Zelda timeline theories back in the day. Honestly, it even preceded my reputation as the guy who sucks at games and still tries to be funny. Why did I ever show you my old channel? Because you don't have any other friends. Anyway, believe it or not, the Zelda timeline was actually a huge debate online as the fan base and the game library grew. Some people even studied the changing landscape of Hyrule or its indigenous races just to determine a chronology. Though very archaeological, that also sounds kind of like overkill for a puzzle game where a whole lake or mountain range might move for no particular reason. Well, it was mostly rationalizing why races like the Zora would be friendly in one game and then violent in the next, and live in completely different corners of the map. It sounds like it's gonna be way more complicated than it needs to be. Also, there's no way the developers ever intended that. Oh, I assure you, this goes way deeper than it ever should have, all for the sake of solving The Legend of Zelda. Can't people just like their little elf boy games without trying to decipher the Da Vinci Code out of them? My personal theory was founded on following the few constants in this series, the whereabouts and conditions of the Master Sword, Ganon, and Ganondorf. Wait, you're assuming Ganon and Ganondorf aren't the same guy? Basically, yeah, it was the only way to justify how many times the big pig man dies throughout the series. Besides, it's not too much of a stretch to assume that the man was just a conduit for the beast to utilize and vice versa. And that gets us where? Well, a structured timeline that actually worked for one. I found the only logical flow of games that allowed for everything to work and published it, beginning and hinging on the time paradox ending in Ocarina of Time. So after Link defeats Ganon as an adult, it begins ends one timeline, and after he goes back to warn young Zelda about Ganondorf as a child, it begins another? Yeah, it's a bonkers idea, but it's straight up what the ending strongly implied, so pretty much everybody rolled with it, me included, calling it the split timeline theory. Sounds to me like an excuse for all the nonsense in the series to make sense, cause now you can just throw conflicting games on alternate timelines and it'll still work. Yes. Oh, Kula Limpa. However, something big happened in 2011 that dropped a bomb on the whole speculation scene. Let me guess, Nintendo did something stupid. Yes. Alongside the newly released Skyward Sword, Nintendo dropped an art anthology book about the series, with one and only one page dedicated to depicting the first ever publication of an official Zelda timeline. Isn't that a good thing? No. I swear there is no pleasing you people. So from the very beginning, Shigeru Miyamoto had claimed that he, alongside Eiji Aonuma, had a secret document hidden away inside of Nintendo with a canon timeline for their reference alone. Whoop-de-frickin-do, and they finally published it, so what? Well, for one, it finally proved that he was lying. What? Riddle me this. How does one create a canon timeline when the games that currently exist only take place in various nonsensical connections to other games that haven't even been conceived yet? Excuse me? Just hold the thought as I show you this official timeline. Obviously, they're making this whole document to push Skyward Sword as the new beginning of the series, so of course that's where they're gonna start. Next up, they show us Minish Cap and 4 Swords, which doesn't actually work considering that's where the Master Sword gets destroyed and reforged into the Picori Blade, and ultimately the 4 Sword, but that continuity mistake is the least of my concerns considering what comes next. But isn't the Link to the Past link in 4 Swords? That game didn't even happen yet. Yeah, I know, it's dumb. Now get a load of this. Ocarina of Time? Yes, with both endings splitting into alternate timelines. Hold on, what's that third line? Wait, what? The hero is defeated? What a load of bullcrap! Needless to say, this pissed people off. Obviously because there isn't a single reference or minute inclination that failing the game would result in a canonical ending, but I digress. We haven't even hit the worst part yet. I wasn't even invested in all this nonsense, and I feel deeply wronged for you. Remember what I said before about Miyamoto's secret document being a lie? Let's take another gander at that timeline. If this timeline truly is the supposed secret document, then pull up your big boy pants and look me dead in the eyes and explain to me why every single Zelda game before Ocarina of Time's release takes place on this third split where the hero is defeated. In what universe does someone intentionally construct a series chronology only to create a new game where the only canonical way to successfully complete the game is to die? It's simple. He's either delusional or he's full of crap. How do you keep enjoying a series when the creators are clearly so catastrophically misinformed and deceptive about their own creation that they would go to these lengths? It's just like they copied everyone else's homework with the whole split timeline thing, but added an amateur twist on it without actually understanding the base theory to begin with for all the sake of appearing unique. It sure didn't help my love for the series that Skyward Sword was the newest game at the time. To hear all about that abomination, check out our massive review, shameless plug. So, the supposed secret timeline was a sham to tease fans, and the released official one was just haphazardly thrown together to help sell an expensive art book? Yes! Well, I guess that's the end of that. Oh, no, it's not. But how is that not the end? For most people, it is. But oh no, I'm just getting started. Let's say you're content sucking Miyamoto and Aonuma's farts and totally accept that the official timeline is correct, regardless of how impossibly boneheaded it is. Idiot. Therefore, you're left with one very difficult pill to swallow. If you accept the idea that Link failing to complete his quest in Ocarina of Time can indeed result in a canon ending to the game, regardless of there not being a the end message instead of a game over. Do you even know how stories work? Then you also must accept that any new game can and probably will do the same at any point and without warning. Oh Jesus, you mean yes! Link gets married to a fish and gives up adventuring to be a stay-home dad for his tadpoles? New timeline! Link opens a chest with a gold rupee inside and exploits the bank to pursue a career of financial fraud through time travel. New timeline. Link dresses up like a cow in hopes that Milan will try to milk him, but instead he gets turned into burgers. New timeline. At any point, any choice contrary to the plot results in a new timeline, creating a kaleidoscopic effect of fractals diverging away from a single coherent timeline and into chaotic infinity. Link gets arrested for breaking and entering. New timeline. Link spends his fortune fruitlessly fishing in a pond the size of a bathtub. New timeline. Link wanders the wilderness catching butterflies for a little girl. New timeline. Link goes to college for sociology only to drop out because he can't speak. New timeline. And eventually complete nonsense. Link opens a duck-powered flying taxi service and revolutionizes economic travel. New timeline. Link dies of blue potion dysentery. New timeline. Link develops a gambling addiction and spirals into inescapable debt. New timeline. Link wallows in guilt after causing a local town to die of dehydration due to having all their pottery destroyed. New timeline. Don't like this option? Well, then all you're left with is what I like to call... Look, it's obvious they lied. There never was a sensible canon timeline to The Legend of Zelda, and there never will be. It was one thing when there were only like 7 games, some of which were easy, direct sequels of each other, but now the series is such an incomprehensible disaster. Nowadays, 2 games might have absolutely nothing to do with each other, but offhandedly reference each other in tiny pointless ways that just throw off the whole thing. I remember my original timeline theory completely falling apart just because of the postman existing in games where he shouldn't. Think about that. My entire theory was dismantled due to the existence of a mailman. Isn't it crazy how Nintendo single-handedly destroyed an entire popular fan base of speculators just by giving them exactly what they asked for? We asked for it under the assumption that there really was a timeline and weren't being fed lies. How are we supposed to know we were opening a Pandora's box conspiracy theory? So what you're saying is there is no timeline. I'm saying that there is no coherent arrangement of Zelda games in a chronology that actually accounts for every little thing, because they were never created with that in mind. So you're saying your options in living in a post-Hyrule Historia world are embracing absolute chaos or living in blissful ignorance? There is no in between. No gray area. It is all or nothing. Infinity over zero. This is the definition of looking too far into something. The Legend of Zelda was never intended to have a singular chronology. Fans just wanted it and created this problem for themselves. The games, however, are all intended to be a word-of-mouth retelling of an ancient story altered throughout history. And that's why they're all so similar, but also different and impossible to link. No pun intended. That pun was most certainly intended. And with that in mind, may I finally present to you the Legend of Zelda.
Long ago, or possibly in the future, in a distant land named Hyrule. Well, most of the time it's Hyrule, but every now and again...
This is off to a great start.
Okay, a land of an indeterminate name, generally referred to as Hyrule, was once populated by many races throughout time, such as the mountain rock folk, the Gorons, and the aquatic merfolk, the Zoras, who would eventually evolve into the avian bird race, the Rito, when the waters rose flooding the land.
That makes absolutely no sense.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. One race in particular was elf-like. No, well, basically regular humans, but with elf ears.
I'm on the edge of my seat, Grandpa.
Known as Hylians, whose royal family ruled Hyrule.
A little on the nose, but okay.
Now, there may or may not have been a king, but there certainly wasn't a queen. However, with absolute certainty, I can say that there was a princess, and her name was Zelda.
At least you're finally sure about something.
Or at least she's a princess most of the time. She could also be a pirate or a random girl.
Oh, come on!
Anywho's, the Hylian knights defended the royal family of disputable size and rank from the legions of monsters encroaching upon their kingdom from various points of origin.
This isn't vague at all.
And these beasts were kept at bay from the lands of Hyrule until the appearance of one malicious entity whose appearance and name are up for debate.
A what? You're giving me nothing here.
This evil character may or may not have been a giant boar.
Huh?
A floating spiky eyeball thing.
Yeah?
Or a dark-skinned man of the desert.
Whoa!
Regardless of his name, he appeared suddenly and did some disagreeable thing that caused problems.
This is the most exciting story ever told.
Historians argue about the particulars, so let's carry on. As the kingdom faced some sort of dangerous plight, either impending or long past.
Actually, does this even count as a story?
A hero rose up from the dwindling ranks of the Hylians, possibly a knight, a ranch hand, islander, shunned orphan, fairy boy of the woods, or something along those lines, sure. And his name...
Yes?
escapes me.
I think you're the one who gets to give him a name most of the time.
What does that even mean? I thought this was a story.
Okay, well, every now and then he's referred to as Link, so let's go on with that.
I wanted to name him Keith Aroni.
So Link, or in some universes also known as Keith Aroni,
Yay!
traveled across the land of probably Hyrule on a quest.
To what?
To, collect 3 things, usually green, red, and blue, and generally in that order, found hidden in dungeons that weren't necessarily prisons like dungeons, more like the traditional D&D dungeons in name alone.
Oh, this is getting good.
Where the indiscriminate hero guy would solve puzzles like pushing blocks and lighting lamps.
Those aren't puzzles.
So he could eventually find the dungeon boss, who wasn't necessarily in command or anything. He was just a really, really big enemy who the vast majority of the time was only vulnerable to the one tool found in the same dungeon.
Gotta say, that's pretty dumb.
Anyway, Keith Aroni defeats the monsters and collects the colored things and gets a sword most of the time. Usually.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, but not just any sword. A sword that is said to really hurt whichever bad guy we are currently subscribing to.
Remind me to never listen to your stories ever again.
So after collecting some more things of some similar size, description, and/or origin, hidden away in equally elaborate means across the land, sky, or sea, Keith Aroni confronts the bad thing and rescues the possibly Princess Zelda and defeats the generally evil character. The end.
Wait, that's it?
Oh, right. And this event takes place over and over again, continuously throughout history, as these 3 characters are reincarnated perpetually for all of time.
Wait, really?
I think.
Come on!
Also, Keith Aroni generally likes the color green, but he's also dabbling in a little cyan lately.
No, you're done. Not much of a legend anymore if it's so mangled and disjointed. There's nothing at its increasingly vague core anymore. Keith Aroni's also generally left-handed, but has proven himself to occasionally be ambidextrous. The Fable of Zelda is a mess. The story is a sham, and the timeline is a joke. Either you're in on the joke, or the joke's on you. Because if you're still buying into this baloney, then you're just playing with yourself. I wonder what Hamster's up to. Oh, God, I gotta stop holding up on the D-pad. Oh, there you are. Hey, check it out, Hamster. We can finally review some Shin Megami Tensei. Which one do you think we should play first? Are you okay?
Oh man, I feel this. Oh, whoa! I am so sorry. I just had some delicious tacos.
Oh, okay, fine. I'll let you pick which one we play first. Okay, cut it out. Hold up, what'd you just throw at me? The Super Famicom game? You gotta be kidding. Oh, come on, I mean, yay, let's do it. That's right. And though the last Shin Megami Tensei game I reviewed was Persona 5, I want to take us all the way back to the series beginning on the Super Famicom in 1992. Even though those Famicom exclusive Digital Devil Story games happened first, and even those were spin-offs of a novel, but still, the Shin beginning. It may have seemed like a long absence for the series, but I've actually been playing quite a lot of smut lately, if the new sprite art behind me didn't give that away. Playing what? Smut? You know, like the shorthand for SMT.
Oh dear.
I love smut! Should I tell him? Check out this new smut art I made! It even lights up! That is some really nice smut. First things first, the original Shin Megami Tensei was exclusive to the Super Famicom and never officially released in the West. Nintendo of America didn't seem to think that a violent RPG about summoning demons and killing God would go over well in the early 90s for some reason. There was also a PlayStation and GBA version, both with slightly different art and music, which also went untranslated for similar reasons, but luckily for us though, the ROM hacking group of heroes known as Aeon Genesis stepped in and fully translated the original in 2002, so that's the version we'll be playing for this video. Even though the English patch kind of bugged the guns and bullets for the first dozen of hours. But hey, if Atlas only gave me the privilege of buying and playing an official localized version, I would have done so. And before you say it, Atlas did actually localize a version of this game. Unfortunately, it was the GBA version ported exclusively to the iOS, which suffered from unresponsive controls and became unplayable on modern devices very quickly. So yeah, this game is basically impossible to buy and play without some nefarious means. So as we mentioned, this isn't isn't really the first in the series, but it's the first to carry the new Shin moniker, meaning new, as Atlus sees this game as a retelling of their previous Famicom exclusive entry, Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei 2. There! Are we all caught up? Can we start now? Shin Megami Tensei is an RPG dungeon crawler from 1992 where players can recruit, summon, and fuse enemy demons, turning them into allied party members. Though you and your human companions can earn XP and level up from battles, your demons cannot, encouraging you to take your weaker demons back to the Jakyu in order to fuse them into new powerful demons to match your growing level. This is so cool! You'll constantly encounter new demons all over Tokyo, and by recruiting or fusing new ones, you'll always have an ever-evolving party and strategy, as each demon knows a handful of unique, helpful moves for combat and survival. But to entice those violent demons to join your side, you'll have to negotiate with them by giving them items and Maka to learn their quirks and personalities and answer their questions and threats in a way that pleases them. But if things go wrong, you'll lose a turn, allowing all of the enemies to dogpile on you before you even get another chance to act. Recruiting demons in this game is chaotic, unforgiving, and sometimes quite random. Demons will casually just piss off with all of your gifts, sucker punch you, or insist on outrageous demands. That freaking face of the moon can even have wildly changing behaviors, so trial and error is not even consistent for these guys. But that's what makes it so much fun. You're communing with literal demons after all. But let's be honest, you're emulating this game anyway. So I say take full advantage of those save states and weigh your options and negotiate with a bit of a safety net, but don't use them too liberally or else you might find yourself in an unwinnable boss battle or a doomed negotiation. I did this so many times. Otherwise, your only save stations are in the rare terminals scattered around Tokyo, which act as fast travel points, and the game requires some serious grinding and planning if you insist on saving only at these terminals due to the size and treachery of the many dangerous dungeons you'll have to overcome along this journey. I'd also recommend a guide, considering the game's pretty vague about where you should be going and what you should be doing. It is this way to encourage blind exploration, which is good for the RPG, but it's really cruel for setting you up for the game's many traps. This Tokyo is not a happy place. Absolutely everything is out to kill you, turn on you, or profit off of your needs. This game is empowering when you manage to claw your way up the ranks and slowly alter the state of the world and ultimately shape it as you see fit. Yeah, it's rough, but once you figure it out, you'll be mowing down hordes of demons like it's nothing, especially once you get a gun that hits all enemies at once, and realize that electric magic is more busted than actual cheat codes, guaranteeing that the enemy will be stunned for a turn after being hit, and conveniently enough, the heroine in your party is a pro with electric and healing magic. Combat allows you up to 6 party members that can be arranged from front to back, with less damage taken from enemy attacks the farther back the party member is standing. You can also switch out demons on your turn if need be, or summon new ones to replace any fallen comrades, cause if they die, they're dead and must be brought back to life by a healer. From there, it's all about party management, exploiting status effects, buffs, debuffs, elements, and magic to play to the strengths of your team, and experimenting and learning enemy weaknesses. It's actually quite Pokemon-esque, but happening years before Pokemon was even conceived. Unlike Pokemon, you can't see the remaining health or level of your enemies, and unless you've already recruited that species, you'll have no idea what they naturally resist, absorb, or even repel. You can't even negotiate or fuse with demons above your level. When you do level up, you'll have complete control over your 6 stats, allotting a set number of points among them however you wish. Each stat performs multiple functions, so there isn't really a bad choice among them to increase, unless you keep packing your protagonist full of magic power expecting him to finally learn some actual spells, because he won't. Ever. At the start of the game, you'll actually get to craft your own and your eventual 3 other human party members' stats from scratch. And aside from your protagonist being designed as a brute and the heroine being designed as a red mage, you can really turn absolutely anybody into whatever you want to match your playstyle, and that's pretty cool. I'm still kind of bitter that I threw meaningless points into magic into my protagonist before I even knew that he didn't even learn any magic, but don't learn from my mistakes. So as we mentioned, this world is cruel and unforgiving, with a high random encounter rate with hordes of up to 8 demons at once coming at you in waves of 3 or more if you're unlucky enough. So to survive, you're gonna need to exploit everything you can to get the advantage, like spending all of your healer's MP before leveling up, as you'll get a free full heal once you do. Also, fully heal your team's HP before paying for a healer to treat your party, as you'll save some cash in the long run. Cause yeah, you're gonna need all the money you can get to survive, from buying and selling new armor and weapons at the newest shops, to stocking up on useful items for the long road ahead. But there's another currency we're neglecting to mention, and that's magnetite. Magnetite is the currency of demons, but its real purpose is to keep them tangible in the real world, by serving as the matter that they possess as the bodies you see. So it's obviously a hot commodity among wild demons, but you'll also have to keep enough in reserve for your own demons, unless you want to risk running out and having your demons lose HP with every step you take as their conduit to survival dries up. The game gives you a hard lesson early on in magnetite management. You normally can't recruit or fuse demons above your level, but if you're feeling particularly despicable, you can use your own loyal dog Pascal as fodder in demon fusion to create the OP Cerberus, who will decimate your adversaries, but will also guzzle up an insatiable amount of magnetite as payment. You'll also accrue precious stones while adventuring, and you better hoard those puppies till endgame, because you'll be able to spend them at Rag's shop in order to acquire some unbelievably overpowered stuff, namely the ultimate sword, the Kagetsuchi. So whenever a demon asks you for gems in negotiation, you better just On top of all this you're juggling, you'll also need to keep a close eye on your character's alignment, because your alignment not only holds severe consequences in shaping your ideology and determining your ending, your alignment also restricts which demons can even be summoned or recruited by you. Oh boy, yeah, there's nothing like a few story decisions pushing your alignment over the edge, tipping away from neutrality and towards either law or chaos, resulting in half your demons to refuse to fight with you. Luckily, you can adjust your alignment in many ways, so this doesn't happen often, allowing you to tiptoe down that tricky path of neutrality. Keep a close eye on your icon on the map screen. If you spin clockwise, then you're heading towards law. Spin counterclockwise and you're leaning chaotic. And if you're wobbling in place, then you have somehow managed to achieve neutrality. For the time being. Yes, neutrality means you'll be able to access more demons, but you'll also make enemies of your own comrades by not siding with either of their conflicting ideologies, and you'll eventually have to go head-to-head with whomever you oppose in the final battles. But if you fought for neutrality, you'll have to overcome both the armies of law and chaos just for the true neutral ending. It's hard, but it's so satisfying fighting against what feels like an impossibly rigged system and coming out on top anyway. Seeing through these temptations of conflicting ideologies and discovering your own path. You just gotta summon and fight alongside demons, kill your friends, and the armies of heaven and hell to get there. I am so excited for the story segment, but first we gotta cover the... Keep in mind that before we even go into this Super Famicom game doesn't even utilize a Super FX chip to pull all of this off. This game looks amazing! You actually get to explore and map huge 3D dungeons with multiple intertwining floors, some with shops, healers, NPCs, teleporters, traps, and dozens of unique prowling demons that all inhabit that space. Now, I've played quite a lot of Super Nintendo, but I have never played anything that looked half as good as Shin Megami Tensei. Each of the beautifully illustrated demons have 2 frames of hand-done sprite animation each, allowing them to give off incredible effects like buzzing wings, glowing eyes, and flickering flames while remaining entirely stationary. Honestly, one of the biggest drives of the game is the excitement to push forward and discover new demons, all originating from various mythologies, religions, and folklore from all around the world. One thing that's kind of annoying is you can't see down long hallways or across rooms where there may or may not be treasure chests or NPCs due to the limited hardware. You've got to actually stand in each tile and face the cardinal direction you want before you'll fully explore the environment. Or you could just use an online map like a normal person. The in-game mapper spell doesn't even really display where things are. It's only good for the stairs and exits. This is the best looking Super Nintendo game, and I will not be taking any questions. Except it's not technically a Super Nintendo game, it's technically a Super Famicom game. Whatever, the game says I'm in a crowded disco, but I can't see anybody unless I try to bump into the walls, which you can actually do, and it's kind of hilarious. Shin Megami Tensei is 670 kilobytes of pure magic. There's also totally 16-bit nudity, gore, and sacrilege. I regret to inform you that humanity has peaked. After an entirely normal dream sequence involving 2 tortured dudes and a naked lady, you awaken to discover a totally legit email in your inbox from somebody you don't even know, providing a link to download a supposed demon summoning program. And since it's 1992, you have no reason not to trust the internet, so you give it a whirl! Yes, you really get your demon summoning abilities by downloading malware from a spam email. This is off to a great start. So you go out on an errand for your mom only to find Tokyo is in lockdown as strange events are occurring all over the city due to a recent malfunction in terminal-based teleportation technology, opening up a gateway to the abyss, allowing demons to escape into our world, on top of unleashing a zombie outbreak. And you're just like, huh, that dude just got his throat slashed by a gremlin. Guess I'll pick up this bloody knife he dropped. I wonder what's for dinner. So you kill some zombies in Yakuza with that knife you found, do some shopping, go back home and chat with your mom about school over dinner, and go to sleep. Where you have another lovely dream about saving a girl from being sacrificed in some satanic ritual before you wake up and check if your computer is finally finished downloading that program yet.
Oh, I do not miss those days.
And it's here that you get guided by the sender of the email to convince demons you encounter to join your side so you can fight back and survive this demon apocalypse that everyone's kind of pretending isn't really happening for as long as they can deny it. Yeah, and tell them a little bit more about that sender. Right, so Steven is the genius behind this new teleportation technology, as well as the demon summoning program, made as a countermeasure for the oncoming devastation caused by his own invention. So he's a super genius named Steven, wearing glasses and using a wheelchair with his head cocked to the side. It's Stephen Hawking. Stephen freaking Hawking is responsible for opening up the gateway to hell and programming occult ritualistic summoning spells to commune with and control demons. You think I'm joking, but this is real! I wonder if the real Professor Hawking ever knew about the integral role he plays in this series. I swear it's because of this one on-the-nose reference that all Atlas games since have had a message about any references to any people living or dead all being coincidental. Like sure, Atlas, sure. So the next time you go back and check on your mom, you'll discover that she's actually an imposter because a demon has already killed her and has been wearing her skin like a suit in hopes of earning your trust and killing you as well. Holy crap, this game's violent. It even has the nerve to give you this horrifying fourth wall breaking save and quit message, claiming that you're not escaping by turning off the game and that the demons are always around you. Good night. And you wonder why this was never translated? Anyway, you meet up with the two guys from your opening dream sequence and team up to survive this all-out war between three emerging factions resulting from the waves of creatures of undeniable demonic origins spilling out into the world. The US military, whom declares martial law in Tokyo in hopes of containing the disaster, a Japanese militia working alongside the demons, and an underground resistance led by the heroine you saw in your dreams. There's also this weird thing with your companion's girlfriend who happens to have the same name as the heroine and just gets you all turned around as you're trying to find her and make sure everyone you know is safe during the chaos, throwing you into the mix of these three military parties, accidentally getting you involved in the mess from a stupid misunderstanding. For the sake of clarity, the female companion leading this third group is known as the heroine. The male companion with the girlfriend crisis is known as the law hero, and your other male companion is known as the chaos hero, referencing their personal conflicting ideologies. So the heroine gets captured by a tyrant named Gatao leading the Japanese coup in hopes of ending her revolution with a public execution, which is where your party appears to save her. And since we're in Japan, it's carried out by a crazy woman named Yuriko who claims to love the protagonist and will stop at nothing to cut his ties to the heroine that he's fated to be with, supposedly, so she can have him all to herself. Yeah. She's also the naked lady from the first dream sequence, by the way, in case you were thinking I was making that up. This whole story sounds like we're making it up, but I swear it only gets crazier. So you'll have the opportunity to side with any of these three factions, but a neutral player will end up fighting Gotao and the American ambassador Thorman, who reveals himself to actually be the Norse god Thor in disguise, launching nuclear ballistic missiles in order to wipe Tokyo off the map. Now remember that this is the early 90s, and as you hear about those incoming nuclear missiles, you are given free control to try and run or hide as a big countdown flashes over your vision. And of course, there's nothing you can do to avoid your imminent demise. It's legitimately terrifying, even 30 years later. Right before you and your friends all get vaporized, the heroine sacrifices herself to warp the three heroes away to what's known as the Diamond Realm, where you'll reconvene with your party members and lost demons in order to build up your strength and prove your ability to survive the new world, which upon exiting, the three heroes discover that they're warped back to Tokyo after the nuclear holocaust, 30 years later, ironically enough. That's actually kind of weird considering it's been 30 years since the game first released, making the destroyed ruined Tokyo modern day for us. Anyway, you'll discover some pretty big changes happened in the last 30 years. One, all of your money has become worthless as the new currency has been adapted after the destruction of the city. Tough break. too. Luckily, some humans managed to survive and have made new lives for themselves by finding safety, supplies, and following all sorts of weird, twisted belief systems to help them get by. And 3, unluckily, all the demons survived as well, and have overrun the ruined Tokyo, as well as the rest of the world. Don't you just love a good RPG that lets you struggle with all your might to be a hero and save everyone, but inevitably you're doomed no matter what you do? Yep, so anyway, 2 cult-like belief systems have also survived the test of time and have now become 2 massive rivaling nations, the God-fearing, law-abiding Messians and the chaotic survival of the fittest clan known as the Ring of Gaia. Both parties are polar opposite extremes of order versus anarchy. The Messians are constructing a massive cathedral to be used by God to bless his chosen people and purge the world of all of its sinners, and the Gaians are aiming to summon Lucifer from the abyss to rain down hell upon the Messians and cripple their plan to unite under God's iron fist and instead create a world of pure freedom. You're also hearing screams and feeling the pain of a woman who isn't really there in this new future, and after freeing a telepath known as Psychodiver from the Gaian prisons, you're told that your soul has been intertwined with another's, and you're feeling her pain and hearing her screams. Psychodiver thanks you for freeing him by helping you find this woman locked up in a Messian prison and allowing you to enter her mind and free her from her psychotic torment by killing the demon who's made a deadly domain inside her subconscious. We are 2 apocalypses in and this game is still out crazying itself every minute. So after saving her, you realize that she's the heroine, but not the same one you knew. In the flesh, she's the reincarnation of the heroine who died saving you 30 years ago, with only vague recollections of her former memories about you. She abandons the Messians to journey alongside you, knowing that you must be the key to her destiny. And any bilingual fans should have already seen this coming, considering the title Shin Megami Tensei directly translates to New Reincarnation of the Goddess. And then we start losing party members. The Chaos Hero began as a bullied weakling who is now so obsessed with strength that he steals your strongest demon and fuses himself with them in order to become a powerful demi-fiend and follow the Ring of Gaia. And from then on, he's an anti-hero at best, unless you don't support Gaia yourself, making him your enemy. I'm still bitter about him stealing my Stonka. And the Law Hero's story gets even nuttier. He gets abducted by a creepy butler known as the Black Baron in order to satiate the psychotic demands of the young Alice, whom he serves alongside the Red Baron in Roppongi, a city that's claimed to be the safe haven for people free of demons. But once the Barons are defeated, it's revealed to be actually a city of the undead, siphoning the spiritual energy out of its inhabitants in order to maintain its demonic repelling barrier, all for the sake of appeasing a demented little demon girl. Oh, and the Law Hero's girlfriend can actually be found here, turned into one of those undead body Conians. But hey, whatever, he's dead anyway. At least for now. Yeah, because apparently his soul is stolen away by the Messians, however that works, who somehow resurrect him as their own literal Messiah to guide them on their holy mission, where he's also considered your enemy if you are not allied with the Messians. Both try to convince you to join them or suffer the consequences, leaving the player to decide their own ideals and courses of actions for themselves. But regardless of which enemies you've made, Tokyo's about to get hit with its 3rd apocalypse, but not before we all take a trip to Disneyland! I swear, he's not joking. You literally go to Tokyo Disneyland, renamed Tokyo Destinyland in order to avoid the wrath of the mouse. But this park is even guarded by the mighty Cerberus, as in your dog that you fused into a demon, you heartless monster. But if you didn't fuse him, you'll never learn that he's what's become of your loyal pooch Pascal. Instead, the last time you ever see of him is his body being vaporized away by your very first teleportation terminal. Mickey and Donald were both originally supposed to be demons you encountered in this area, and I am still shocked that with everything in this game that people could get offended by, it was Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck that pushed things over the edge. But anyway, the Messians complete their cathedral to the God of Law, which acts as an ark to its followers while they summon God's will to flood the rest of the entire world, leaving only those inside the great cathedral at the time to survive this most recent apocalypse. Both Law and Chaos Hero made it inside and commandeered cordoned off territories of the cathedral for their few remaining followers to use as a base of operations, locked in a stalemate against the other forces, and you'll only be allowed inside each base assuming you're not directly opposing them. So you make friends with the turtle, explore the flooded Tokyo to search for sunken treasure, and slay the tyrant Beelzebub. This game's the best. Before eventually braving the enormous cathedral in order to support your chosen side in battle and either slay or join the Messian angel Michael, his servants Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel, along with the Law Hero, as well as slay or join the Gaian Lord Asura, his servants It's Astaroth, Ariok, and Surtur, and of course the Chaos Hero. But in order to achieve balance and regain neutrality, you must overcome both forces. You'll also find out that Yuriko was actually the demon Lilith, and that you two were implied to be the reincarnations of Adam and Eve, which is kind of why she pursued you so fanatically up to this point, until you kick her teeth in alongside your other predestined girlfriend. Fate is weird. If you manage to maintain neutrality throughout this game and defeat both Michael and Asura, then you'll meet Taishang Lao Jun, who thanks you for your perseverance in maintaining balance and allowing humanity to pursue a new future built by neither reliance on God nor demons, but by the hands of people themselves. This was nuts! It's the most unabashedly insane story that just keeps one-upping itself, somehow mixing all religions and mythologies together and creating an impactful narrative between the madness. Forgive me for laying it all out for you like that, but considering you'll probably never play it, I felt obligated to share this with you. I just experienced the most indescribable roller coaster of a game, and I don't have anybody to talk to about it! Dude, remember your mom being a demon wearing her corpse? Dude, remember Alice and Roppongi? Dude, remember the Black Baron reaching his arms through the menu to abduct and murder your party member you've had for the entire game? Dude, remember how Stephen Hawking survived all 3 apocalypses and transcended time and space to become an immortal ethereal entity? No, that actually happens. I love this game. This soundtrack is incredible, and we're not even listening to it. Long story. So apparently the original Super Famicom soundtrack is owned by JVC Kenwood Victor Entertainment Corp., which doesn't even know that they own the game, considering it's not even listed in their own discography, by the way. And because they're a bunch of greedy sticklers, they restricted the entire soundtrack on YouTube. Instead, we're listening to the remade soundtrack for the PS1 release, which isn't quite as good as the Super Famicom, but at least it's not this horrendously garbled GBA soundtrack. When somebody says long story, they usually don't mean sit down because I'm about to barf paragraphs. Just look up the Super Famicom soundtrack online and thank me later. Just play the game and thank me later. Take this from a guy who will tell you that the Super Nintendo has one of the greatest libraries in gaming history. Shin Megami Tensei is easily one of the best games on the console. Get this, if you activate a Nintendo Switch Online account for a Japanese profile, you'll have access to play not only Shin Megami Tensei on Super Famicom, but also SMT2 and SMT-IF, albeit in Japanese, of course. Wait, so if you have NSO, doesn't that technically mean that you already own access to the games and have the right to emulate and modify that software elsewhere? Like, I don't know, maybe the Super Nintendo Classic? Come on, Atlas, I know you have the translated files, just bundle them and release them already, and preferably not exclusive to ISO this time. Sama Nekaraba, Nihongo o Hansu, ho ho o Manabu, Hitsuyo ga haramasu, shinai de kudasai. The positive gamer in me managed to negotiate a 9 out of 10 for Shin Megami Tensei. It's a great retro game that actually gets better with the use of modern save states and online maps. Even though Atlas won't take your maca for it, if that day ever comes, jump on it. The critical gamer in me has no conflicts in alignment rating Shin Megami Tensei an almighty 10 out of 10. Yes, it's that good. The graphics are incredible, the soundtrack is intense, the story is absolute madness, and the gameplay is innovative, deep, and satisfying. If you're able to get your hands on it, I couldn't recommend it higher. But what do you think? Tell us how your positive and critical sides rate Shin Megami Tensei in the comments below. But if you're letting this masterpiece slip by you just because it's a 30-year-old Super Famicom exclusive, and you're just playing with yourself. Actually, that's a really good point. You probably should.
Outside. You're outside. Favorite. Uh-oh. Two. Get down. 1, 2, 3, 4. How's that? Okay. 哦，5，你看真好。下的那胖可快，妈妈就快，哦5哦，你问。Daddy. Oh, Mom. Put olive. Oh. What can you say? What I should say now? I should say now. Like, I can. Oh, how to see? That's right. How to see? How to see? Oh, Ninja. I want people. And today, he needs that. Wow. He had blue. Yeah. Help him. Open. Help him. I want that. Help him. I want help him. He needs big daddy. He needs I fit. And that. He needs that. He needs that. Nature. He needs that. Nature. Oh. Uh-oh, I had me hen. No, I need hen. I need hen. I need Two. I want that food. Two. Eat time. 2, 5, 2, 5. 你晚上玩了，嘟嘟玩。Uh-oh, I got Puma. I got 10. Ha! He's fun.
All right. Hamster, look, I finally got the perler wall looking complete. Yeah, that's nice. You do realize we have another massive JRPG to review this week, right?
Oh, you go ahead. I'm gonna sit back and just admire my work.
So I finally got around to playing Xenogears to experience Monolith Soft's original title that expanded into the series we know it as today. But I wasn't expecting Monolith to be playing 4D chess with their recent Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC, bringing back Shulk, Rex, and most shockingly, Faye, tying their entire Xeno series together for the first time ever. Minus X and Saga.
Assuming Square even allowed it, and that even is Faye.
Right, technically Xenogears was originally pitched as Final Fantasy VII internally at Square by Tetsuya Takahashi, but was rejected due to it being too dark and distant from the series' past. It was even gonna be titled Chrono Trigger 2 at one point. Eventually the team did, however, get the go-ahead to create the game as its own IP, but under unfortunate budget and time limitations as was typical at the time for Square.
Yep, that's painfully obvious once you make it to the second disc.
Give them a break! They basically built the pyramids in 2 years with nothing but dirt and their own saliva.
Aren't you yearning for context?
The people who played Xenogears certainly know what we're referencing.
Yearn! Gotta keep you watching somehow.
Okay, I can totally see where Square was coming from with this game being too dark for Final Fantasy, and for those familiar with Xenoblade, this is way darker than even you're imagining. And once again, this is one of those games you'll never get your hands on anymore. Xenogears hasn't been ported to any modern platforms, wasn't included on the PlayStation Classic, and only exists as an extremely pricey physical PS1 game in real hardware, or as a nigh impossible to download PS3 store exclusive. Yeah, and even though Square Enix continues to market new Xenogears merchandise, to this day, they still haven't so much as ported the original game or developed any form of an HD remaster like the game deserves. Though what it really deserves is to be finished, but yeah, so this is yet another game where I had no other choice but to reluctantly emulate it. Can you tell that I'm a stickler for game preservation yet?
Those new gear models are really cool.
Oh, but I'd much rather buy the actual game, Square! And make some perlers.
Oh my god.
What? There's a whole other wall right over there! We're in JRPG town, so we'll be chasing some old stereotypes as our amnesiac protagonist joins up with a riffraff crew of misfits from across the fantasy world to challenge the natural order of things and ultimately kill God as tradition dictates. Sounds weird summing it all up like that, since Xenogears' story is so unique it could have been seen as the progenitor of the trope, even though so many games use this oddly recurring format beforehand. Though there's actually a lot of unique elements that make the game stand out. For one, even though the game is sprite-based, the whole world is 3D, giving you full 360 control over your camera. Aside from this making the game age far better than its early 3D peers, it's also quite nice in gameplay, having good 3D platforming control to avoid unfair isometric jumps and traps. And then when it comes to the overworld, you'll slowly upgrade your mode of transportation to allow you to surf on the sand, sail across the sea, and even fly through the skies. It's something Final Fantasy tried to do previously on the Super Nintendo, but Xenogears pulls off spectacularly on the much more powerful PlayStation. So aside from exploring, you'll of course have combat, which does take a page out of Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger's book while still coming off as entirely its own thing. How many times is Chrono Trigger gonna come up before I just suck it up and review it already? So you'll notice right away that your characters have ATB gauges, determining their speed in battle. But unlike Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger, time freezes once it's your character's turn, allowing you to better think about how you want to attack instead of frantically speeding through menus to optimize your damage output. Each character has basically magic in the form of ether attacks they learn through level up that'll expend their limited EP gauge. And though some of these abilities are quite broken, like Bart's accuracy debuffing Wild Smile, some are literally broken, like Faye's Yin and Yang powers, that are supposed to buff either attack or defense and weaken the other in a trade-off, but instead they just give you the buff with no drawbacks. Hey, I'm not complaining, I spammed that all game. Now, if you want to actually do some damage in combat, you'll need to attack with your refilling AP gauge. Now, this is the weird part, so bear with me here. Each turn, you'll get a full AP bar to spend however you like. Triangle is a light attack costing 1 AP, square is a heavy attack costing 2, and X is a super duper heavy attack costing 3. Sure, you could spend all of your AP each turn, but you can also stockpile unspent AP for future turns in order to unleash some powerful combos. But instead of just spamming your strongest attacks every turn, you should instead try out as many combinations of these attacks as possible with your current AP in order to eventually have that character learn what are called death blows. Death blows are extra powerful attacks with unique animations that'll wreck your opponents, and sometimes even pack some elemental damage, becoming practically necessary by late game to hit some boss weak points. But though they're powerful, try not to spam them too much, as you've still got to teach your characters even more death blows. So keep trying out new attack combos that don't result in a death blow yet, because practically every combo does after enough patience. And let's not forget that learning death blows can also carry over as combos for your mechs called gears, which you'll also be fighting inside many times throughout the game. Your gears do fundamentally function the same as regular combat, except they consume fuel as they attack instead. If you ever run out of fuel, your gear is kinda dead in the water unless you slowly charge energy and manifest fuel out of thin air in order to refill it. However that works. But it's not recommended, especially in boss fights. Just as you'd equip your characters with new armor and items as you explore new areas, you've also got to tune up your gears to make sure they are prepared for the fight ahead, since the gears themselves don't level up. They just equipped better engines and armor, and of course need to refuel in order to fight effectively. I admit it's really weird at first, but once I got it, it all became really engaging. Gear combat is all about knowing when to conserve your fuel and when to go all out. You can even activate what's called a booster for a huge increase of speed for the cost of 50 fuel a turn, and anyone familiar with haste in Final Fantasy should already know how powerful speed is in an ATB combat system. This game's so huge we're inevitably gonna undersell it. There's even a whole chapter where you're basically playing a 3D Tekken-like fighting game in your gears, and it's never utilized ever again. Xenogears is so ambitious, putting in a ton of effort into little things like that all over the game that make it indescribably spectacular. Well, until Desk 2 it is, then it just dissolves into press the X button the game. We'll cover it in the story. Darn Skippy, we will! Okay, remember how I said that the game is 3D but with sprite art? To pull that off, absolutely everything needed to have unique sprites for every possible angle and animation. That's an incredible amount of dedication for something very few players will even notice and appreciate, but it makes it look like nothing else. The team didn't like the graphical direction Final Fantasy VII took with its primitive 3D, and instead had the forethought to create this involved 3D sprite hybrid system, and it actually made the game age phenomenally well compared to the early 3D games of the time. The whole world's got this grungy Cowboy Bebop thing where we're in a hyper-advanced futuristic civilization, but you're a bunch of poor schmucks living in a rundown cottage on the ground, while the oppressive rich elite float in the world above. It helps focus on the story of the real people living under the boot of a rich corporate civilization and trapped within the cogs of a greater narrative. The game's also got a lot of beefy cutscenes allowing for it to tell its story properly, so if you don't happen to find the long-winded dialogue scenes engaging, then the game as a whole might just fall apart for you. And there's even several anime cutscenes spliced in here and there. For the most part, they look really great, but the dubbing and lip syncing is horrible, so you be the judge.
I'm sorry. I guess I couldn't help you after all. All I can do for you now is ease your wounds.
I was really weirded out how the game just kind of stopped the anime cutscenes pretty early on, and I was left wondering when I'd ever see another again. Then, weirdly enough, after like 50 hours, I suddenly got hit with one, but it was spliced in between two awkwardly fast-forwardy bits from Disc 2. They clearly made the cutscenes first and just kept expanding more and more into the first half of the game before realizing that they were running out of time. But hey, we paid to animate this scene, so you're gonna watch it, whether or not you get to appreciate the context of the scene at all. Alright, you waited long enough, it's story time. Switch back to Disc 1, everybody, we're in it for the long haul. After an impressive lengthy anime cutscene, which I'm not going to provide context for, involving a colossal spaceship being hacked and crash landing on a nearby planet with a purple-haired naked lady emerging from the wreckage, we begin the story in a small peaceful town of Lahan Village, controlling Fei Fong Wong, a martial artist master who doesn't want anything to do with fighting, and will never hold a weapon for the entire game, by the way, and instead would rather everyone just leave him alone so he can paint in peace. Well, we're playing as him in an RPG, so that's obviously not gonna happen. Especially when you learn the entire continent of Ignis is locked in a war that's gone on for centuries between the two nations of Kislev and Ave. And if I just made all the Xenoblade 3 fans raise an eyebrow, yes, these two nations are very likely to be the very same Keves and Agnes, or eventually will be, or have been at one point in the past. It doesn't matter, I said centuries-long war, so who knows? So Faye's spending his time in Lahan Village like a normal person, painting and awaiting the imminent marriage of his two best friends, Alice and Timothy, by playing rock, paper, scissors with the local psychotically proclaimed RPS king, just because his wife is sick of hearing about her husband constantly bragging about his mad skills, yo. And no, I'm not joking. You even get the RPS badge to prove your dominance over dumb luck afterward. So anyway, the plot. Faye is returning from a visit visit to the local mountain doctor man, Saitan Uzuki, when, with no discernible relation to Shion Uzuki from Xenosaga, by the way, unless he's like her distant descendant or something, when he spots a group of gears flying toward Lahan. Faye and Saitan rush back to the village in flames due to the sudden attack. Faye finds a downed gear and decides to pilot the thing to try and drive off the attackers in spite of Saitan's protests. All goes surprisingly well, even though Faye doesn't know why he knows how to operate this giant mech. That is until Faye watches Timothy take a fatal shot and die while fleeing the village. Something snaps inside Faye's banged up little brain and he blacks out. But when he awakens, he discovers that during his little episode, he actually destroyed all of the enemy gears alongside the entire village and practically all of its inhabitants. The few survivors decide to exile Faye, leaving him no choice but to wander off into the vast war-torn continent of Ignis alone. And that's all we're gonna tell you before we start down the long, spoiler-ridden roller coaster ride that is the rest of the story. It's already a wild start, and you're already playing a JRPG where the protagonist wants nothing to do with fighting, and you just somehow killed not only your best friends right before their wedding, but their entire village, all because you tried to save them. Yeah, this story's gonna hurt. On his journey, Faye encounters a Gebler soldier named Ellie. Yes, Gebler is a third faction in this war, but we're gonna get to that later. Faye's in such a rough state after the destruction of Lahan that he tries provoking Ellie into shooting him to end his own suffering. In a twist of fate, Faye ends up joining Ellie in order to help her escape the forest, and has to pilot the very same gear he used to destroy that village earlier in order to save Ellie from a freaking dinosaur in the woods. Yeah, your good old buddy Saitan didn't think you were traumatized enough, so he literally helicopters in the source of your nightmares at the ideal moment. Some doctor. To be fair, Saitan decided to join up with Faye after the destruction of the village and thought that the abandoned gear would come in handy, which it did, So he left a desperate group of survivors in order to make sure your life remained miserable? In the middle of the night, Saitan encourages Ellie to leave Faye in the woods, implying he's got some ulterior motives and knows a lot more than he's letting on. Oh boy, we're in such good hands. Well, the pair head to the desert where they encounter Graf, who is a really complicated antagonist. Faye will bump heads with this guy throughout the game, but we shouldn't explain him yet, but anyway, he claims to know a lot about Faye and his past. And for those of you thinking he looks dead on like a Mobius, I'll just stop you right there and say, yeah, sorta? But the real Mobius is actually another group of baddies whom we'll occasionally listen in on while they lay out their plans and argue amongst themselves throughout the game, called the Gazel Ministry. So just try to keep those groups in mind as we blast through the story, because they're important and pop up a lot through the game. So after getting arrested and breaking free, Faye joins up with Bart, a prince-turned-sand pirate, on a journey to save his cousin Marguerite from the stinky poo-poo heads who overthrew his rightful kingdom. Small anecdote, on this journey, the two meet a strange old archaeologist in a subterranean desert cave who is perplexed at why he can't find any fossilized human remains older than 10,000 years. I love how the game's just like, huh, that's weird. It just kind of teases you with that incredibly strange revelation as you return to your regularly scheduled questicles. Anyway, you get into a fighting tournament in order to stall for time as Bart infiltrates his own castle overrun with enemy guards. But the thing is, the guards flock to go see an exciting fight, so Faye needs to perform well, but also keep in mind that he can't win too fast, as Bart can only advance in his infiltration with as much time as Faye is buying him in real time. And that's an incredibly clever part of the game. What really got me though is that one of the contestants is Dan, the little brother of Alice, the bride-to-be from Lahan Village. And he just screams at you and beats the crap out of you, and you can and probably should choose to not fight the poor kid, but by doing so, he gives you his sister's wedding dress, so that you now have to see it in your inventory for the rest of the game whenever you open up that menu, and you're gonna think of her, and everybody else's lives that you ended in Lahan. And I'd be lying if that's not the most effective, painful reminder imaginable. So as you escape with Marguerite, Faye and Bart are met with another new set of villains. Karen Ramses, a high-ranking Gebler psycho with a hard-on superiority complex boner for Faye, and slowly loses his mind throughout the game after constantly failing to defeat him, and Miang Hawa, who is far more important, but not till later. Let's just say she's another one of those characters who knows too much. Soon after the rescue mission, the team turns back and attempts a full-on assault on the palace in hopes of taking back the throne from the invaders, but on the way, Faye is met with Graf, who uses his weird evil magic powers to grant unlimited power to one of the strongest of the forces against Faye, and starts absolutely wrecking them. Faye, feeling completely overwhelmed and helpless, blacks out. With Faye being completely useless, Ramses orders the Yggdrasil, Bart's sand-surfing submarine ship, to surrender, but out of nowhere, a ridiculously powerful red gear appears and attacks the ship, effortlessly splitting it in half. Ramses attempts to confront it and is totally decimated instantly, causing all of the Gebler forces to retreat. The group manages to survive, and luckily Bart just happens to come across a new Yggdrasil model afterwards, so you don't really have to worry about losing out on your overworld travel ship. Once Faye awakens, he finds himself in a Kislev prison, where he meets up with Hammer, an information broker gopher, Rico, a mutant bastard child of the local racist Kaiser and champion of the prison-run gear battling competition, and Saitan, discreetly taking over for the prison doctor because nobody bothered to look over his resume and see what happened to the last group of people who needed his medical attention. So weirdly enough, the gear battling games are so popular, the prison will grant the release of the inmate who becomes the new champion. And since Rico is the longtime champ who stays in prison basically for funsies, nobody has been able to take advantage of this perk for a long time. So Faye accepts it as his only feasible plan of escape, considering he's equipped with a massive exploding neck brace that'll detonate if he ever attempts to escape or remove the death collar. So of course you win, and after a little Scooby-Doo murder investigation in the sewers to prove you were not involved in them, long story, just before your release, Solaris, that third faction from the beginning, begins raining down fire and bombs upon the entire city. Faye and Rico do their best to try and fight off the encroaching flying warships in their gears, but to little avail, as both of their gears overheat due to the strain. But luckily enough, Ellie, a Gebler soldier from Solaris, remember, sees them and realizes she's basically working for the bad guys, and turns on her own forces in a hopeless sacrificial attempt to buy some time for some evacuations below. And she'd have certainly died in the process of holding back a torpedoing kamikaze spaceship from the city below, were it not for Graf, of all people, saving her. Yeah, he's not a good guy now by any means, but he was just mostly curious about who, or rather what, Ellie even is. But anyway, the crew flees the city, now obviously fugitives from Kislev again, so they decide to steal their secret massive hidden airship nearby in order to escape, which, during their successful flight, they are ambushed by Graf, who is ridiculously powerful by the way, but refuses to harm Ellie for unknown reasons. Regardless, once you finally shake him loose and excitedly command your new flying battleship, freaking Bart sees you coming from below and, thinking you're Kislev, tries out his new super cannon to destroy the entire warship in a single blast, crash landing you all into the ocean. So you get rescued by a friendly treasure-hunting walrus pirate captaining the Thames, a city-sized floating vessel. Ellie gets kidnapped and brainwashed by Miang, eventually resulting in Faye going into a coma due to overheating his gear in an underwater battle. Yeah, it's a thing. While Faye is kaput, you end up joining up with the young gunslinging ethos priest Billy Lee Black to utilize the ethos' superior medical technology to save Faye's life. And it's there that you meet the ethos bishop Isaac Stone, who reveals how deplorable the church really is, cultivating and controlling the so-called lambs, basically the people of the earth, for Solaris, the elite civilization living in hidden cities in the sky. And it gets a lot worse, but we don't know the full extent yet. So you journey after this sicko to a hidden excavation site and discover Emeralda, a girl whose entire body is constructed by nanomachines. And once she eventually joins your party, she's amazing. She can fluidly morph her body into anything, like turn her arms into hammers or guns, or even disintegrate completely and phase right through an enemy and obliterate them at the atomic level. She's so cool, but not for a while. Yeah, because that ridiculously OP red gear appears again and attempts to kidnap her, but with a little help, he's repelled, and Stone is defeated. So Faye finally awakens, and the crew realizes they need some allies, and decide to scale up the monumental Babel Tower in order to enter the floating city called Shavat, where they get a couple more party members, a helpless little girl with a stupidly massive gear, and a weird Nopon-esque bunny Ewok thing named Choo Choo, both of which are only really helpful in gear-based battles. Otherwise, Maria especially is a straight-up handicap. Oh, and long story short, they defeat the Ave leader and Bart reclaims his place as king to stop the war against Kislev, which Solaris doesn't want since it's integral to its control over the lambs. So the group decides to take the war to Solaris directly, whereupon uncovering and infiltrating it, they discover it's actually a dystopian slave city, powered and fueled by the kidnapped lambs below, tricked by the ethos and siphoning their resources from the surface. The church is just a front to trick people into donating food, funds, and ultimately legitimately people's lives who want to become priests, but are instead warped into the sky to live in a secret slave colony for their elite oppressors? Just think about that! It also turns out that the high-ranking ethos were rewarded with underage sex slaves of their own choice in exchange for their support to Solaris and keeping the true operation hush-hush. Isn't this sick how real this is getting? And it gets a lot worse if you can believe it. There are experimental laboratories on this place, transforming their slaves into monstrosities when they either get out of line or deplete their usefulness. And these monsters were rarely seen on the surface, and the unflattering or flat-out dead ones end up in huge automated conveyor belts to become mashed up canned human flesh and fed to the people of Solaris. And not only did Saitan mysteriously know this, but he just lets Faye and Ellie straight up eat some without telling them! I'm starting to think he's not a real doctor. But God, they unknowingly live off of mashed up religious devoutes turned experimental abominations and smashed into canned soup? And you watch it all happen too in the factories in all of its gruesome detail. You won't see that in Xenoblade. Well, Saitan certainly knows too much about this place, and Ellie finally snaps at him, demanding to know the truth, whereupon the lights go out, and Ellie and Faye awaken imprisoned deep inside Solaris, where Saitan reveals that his real name is Hyuga Ricto, a spy working for the Emperor Cain of Solaris, tasked with keeping a close eye on Faye, whereas Ellie is taken in order for the Gazel Ministry to resurrect what they call the Deus and achieve eternal life. But luckily for the group, Emperor Cain backstabs the Gazel Ministry, allowing Hyuga to release Faye and Ellie, which eventually gets Cain assassinated as a result. You're still following all this trickery backstabbiness, right? Because you better be paying attention to exactly why Saitan was following Faye for so long. So, Faye doesn't truly have amnesia. What he actually has is split personality disorder. Faye himself is effectively harmless outside of his martial arts training. It's his dormant alternate personality named Id that's the true interest of Solaris, calling him the Contact. And it's not Faye, but Id that Saitan wanted to restrain and interrogate due to his immeasurable strength. But who is Id? Id is the unbelievably powerful psycho piloting the Red Gear. Id is the persona that emerged to effortlessly destroy Lahan, destroy the Yggdrasil, commit murders in the prison, kidnap Emeralda, and take over Faye's body whenever he shows his weakness. Yes, you have secretly been the source of your own misfortune this entire time. Saying that you're the bad guy is a colossal understatement. Faye's dormant counterpart is practically an apocalyptical deity living inside of him. Oh man, when I first was told that, I had to seriously stop and just let that sink in. How on earth did a video game pull off such a colossal plot twist, rip the carpet out from under my feet, and still have it all make sense in the end? And the best part is, there is so much more to this story. Can we review like Frogger or Pong next? I need a break. So after their escape, Ellie visits her parents in hopes of convincing them to leave Solaris with her, but after a desperate escape sequence, Hammer, the gopher broker, holds Ellie's mom hostage in hopes of bringing Ellie to Krelian, the Solarian leader, but shoots her on accident instead, killing her immediately. Then at the worst possible time, Ellie's father dies trying to secure their escape route, and this crushes Ellie completely. And Faye is also totally overwhelmed, transforming into Id in front of everyone, telepathically summoning and transforming his gear into the lethal red form, and completely destroys the entire floating city of Solaris. Faye and Ellie are mortally wounded, but slowly recover over 3 weeks by the hermit Tora Melchior. Ignoring the accidentally destroying an entire city by triggering the psycho thing, the name Melchior should sound familiar to Chrono Trigger fans, as he's actually a prominent character in the game. And funnily enough, there was another familiar face in Lahan Village that we neglected to mention earlier. Your time travel tinkerer party member Luca actually visits the village and even explains to Faye how save stations work. So yeah, Chrono Trigger is canon in the Xeno universe. And now you know that. Normally you're getting on me for rambling on too long. Ah, come on, that's cool. Anyway, we finally reached Disc 2, where unfortunately the devs ran out of time and desperately rushed the rest of the game together, compromising gameplay in the process so the story could be told. So basically you'll they'll just be reading most of what happens as the characters take turns in the timeout chair, just telling us about what happens next instead of letting us actually explore the areas and dungeons that they clearly imply through their word vomit. It's a shame, but you do at least get to play the crucial parts, and the animated cutscenes do pick up on this disc, so take what you can get. So great, now we gotta sum up the summarized summary that the game gives us. So the party releases the genetic limiters imposed by Solaris on everyone on the planet, but at the same time, Krellian releases a horrific virus, mutating virtually everyone still alive on the planet into those experimental abominations called wells. And these mutant wells swarm and devour lesser mutated humans, creating a cycle of widespread mutant cannibalism, all so that the Gazel Ministry could assemble the optimal genetic material for reviving Deus, whatever that means, and I still haven't even explained that yet. We'll get there eventually, I swear. So the group destroys the systems keeping this cycle in place and tries their best to create a sanctuary to nurse people back to a livable human state, and they search for and assemble anima relics to transform their gears into the legendary OP Omni Gears and defeat the power-crazed betraying Hammer in what I swear is the hardest fight in the entire game. And with enough genetic material, basically mutant human meat sludge, the Ministry resurrects Deus, the mysterious entity that crash-landed on the planet 10,000 years ago. And there's that number again. Remember there were no human records before that point in history? Yeah, of course it's not creationism, don't be an idiot. I can finally explain the intro cutscene! So sometime, I assume, after the events of Xenosaga, a massive colony ship crash lands on an alien planet, where the purple-haired naked lady emerges. Well, the message hacked over all the ship's screens simply read, "Ye shall be as gods," meaning the hacker deliberately crash-landed the ship on a barren planet of human life in order to turn the ship's inhabitants into the progenitors of a new race of humans. However, all governed by this strange will, the surviving organic elements from Deus, the Gazel Ministry. And that hacker, by the way, was none other than the Deus itself. If it feels like we're going too fast, then good, because that's what Disc 2 feels like. So after a PS1 sex scene with Faye and Ellie, the two begin to recollect their previous lives together as past reincarnations of themselves, repeatedly dying and becoming reincarnated again throughout the past 10,000 years, as they are effectively the Adam and Eve of the Deus system, created to eternally be reborn and eventually discover the truth about the world. And one of Ellie's past lives was as Sophia, the holy mother of ancient lore, whom Faye's former incarnation Lacan loved but tragically lost due to her self-sacrificial death that he couldn't prevent. So Lacan snapped, lashing out against this cursed system and aimed to destroy the world, and even when his own physical body died, he transplanted his mind into new bodies to live on eternally to ensure his destruction is assured, and his current form is known as Graph. Hey, if you need a pause to get a drink of water, we'll wait. Emeralda even recognizes Faye from one of his past lives, calling him by the name of Kim, her creator. She also rapidly ages once Faye finally remembers these past lives for some reason, but hey, it looks wicked cool, so whatever. Back on topic, the party challenges the completed Deus while dodging and slaying the mutated flying angel Wells attacking the entire world along the way, and get challenged by Graph as well as Krellian, who captures and crucifies the party. Crucifies the party! Well, minus Ellie, who was actually lured here on a trap to awaken Deus, where the party is released, from crucifixion, to pursue Krellian and Ellie. Krellian actually backstabs and destroys the Gazel Ministry. Ramses, now totally insane, fights the party, revealing that he was an experimental artificial contact, before Miang discovered her recent incarnation's son, Faye, was the true contact. And yes, Miang has been reincarnating too. As for what a contact is, it basically means Faye's original incarnation actually made contact with an extra-dimensional entity trapped within a golden prison called the Zohar, constructed to exploit the enslaved entity's otherworldly existence and its unlimited power supply. And this Zohar is the power source of the original Deus system from that massive ship that crash-landed on the planet 10,000 years ago. The group finds Ellie bound and crucified herself, as Krellian explains she must be sacrificed to revive Deus. A crazed Ramses shoots Krellian and Miang out of spite for using him. Krellian, being composed of mostly nanomachines, quickly revives, and Faye takes advantage of this situation to rescue Ellie, who suddenly shoots him, revealing that she's now Miang in her final incarnation. You see, Miang was actually the purple-haired naked lady from the beginning. She's just been swapping bodies upon death for millennia, but unable to actually kill herself to force force the switch at any point. So now in her desired form, Miang and Krelian are absorbed into Deus, allowing it to wreak havoc on the world below, firing unimaginably powerful laser blasts to destroy the world. The remnants of the last human stragglers hide out in the fallen cities of Shavat and Solaris, now turned subterranean refurbished safe houses from the rampant wells and violent weather. Faye manages to uncover the Zohar and commune with the being trapped inside, simply known as the Wave Existence. It pleads for him to free it from its prison, as well as save his own planet by destroying Deus, which in turn would destroy its own prison, shackling it to our plane of existence. Once Faye accepts the task and returns to the party, his gear fully awakens and transforms into its titular final form, Xenogears. He said the thing! There's also another huge plot twist as we discover Faye's missing father had been helping him all throughout the game, disguised as the persona of Wiseman. But through another twist, we find out that Wiseman was also the current body that Graf, or Lacan, was using in order to wreak havoc on the world, and he used the disguised Wiseman moniker when he broke through mentally that held back version of the Graf persona. I guess crazy runs in the family. You should never neglect your mental health, kids. As the Contact, Faye was granted the power to one day destroy the Zohar, and with his father's help, Faye is able to overcome his conflicting personalities and fully utilize the power granted to id in order to challenge the completed Deus inside of its core, freeing the Zohar's wave existence from what it calls its fleshy captivity. Ellie, now freed from Deus's Miang control thing, attempts to drive the out-of-control Deus away from the planet to keep the imminent self-destruction from obliterating what's left of its inhabitants. But by destroying the Zohar, everybody's gears cease functioning, as it was their power source all along as well. All except for Xenogears. So Faye, ignoring the party's pleas to stop, charges forward after Ellie in hopes of rescuing her from her self-sacrificial blast. But instead, the two are sucked into a tear in reality as the exploding Deus rips apart space-time. Have we mentioned that this is all really cool? Inside the rift, Faye and Ellie meet Krelian on the cusp of entering the Wave Existence dimension and righting the wrongs of the world, as was his true goal from the beginning. Which I'm not sure I buy, considering the catastrophically evil things he did to get there, but if he was just banking on smacking a reset button at the end, I guess it's justifiable to him. The two have an argument of ideologies, as Faye argues that it's the imperfections of humanity that make them human, and Krelian's ideal world of perfection is ultimately flawed. Krelian challenges Faye to prove his love and conviction that gives him authority over God by calling forth Ouroboros to defeat him. Yes, the final boss is Ouroboros, to end this cycle of controlled death and rebirth. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it, Xenoblade 3 fans? And did I mention that the working title for Xenogears was Project Noah? Yeah, I hope you realize how masterfully intertwined these games are. After defeating Ouroboros, and yes, it's misspelled like that with an L for some reason, whatever, Ellie tells Faye Krelian was only aiming for a world where no one could ever experience loss ever again, and not to hate him for his misguided passion. Krelian chooses to ascend into the Wave Existence, leaving Faye and Ellie to return to their world, now free from the entity they knew as God. They descend inside Xenogears to the shock and awe of the party, and return safely to the Earth. Wow. Oh, and after the end credits roll, the words Xenogears Episode 5 appears on screen. What? Is that supposed to be like a Star Wars thing? Like starting on episode 4? No. So it's supposedly more like there's 6 episodes total, but they weren't all intended to be games. In fact, the other episodes were strongly implied to be the stories of the other incarnations of Faye throughout time, which, if you can believe it, was actually totally glossed over in our story synopsis, among many other things. Okay, so the story's not garishly cut short like I thought. And remember, Faye is just 5 of 6 of this reincarnation train, implying that there's still more to come from this story that was never told, which may or may not finally become wrapped up later this year in the conclusion to Xenoblade 3's DLC. And even if that guy's not actually named Faye, he could very well still be the episode 6 incarnation of the same guy. That way Nintendo can dodge Square's greedy lawyers and complete his story and tie it all up nicely with a bow after 25 years. Even if he's not named Faye, he's still Fey. And now you're one of the few informed people who can fully appreciate the absolute madness that has been, and will be, and currently is, the entirety of the Xeno universe. Alright, this was fun and all, but I say we review Pac-Man next time, so I can just talk about a pizza man gobbling balls. If that Xenoblade DLC sucks, this is gonna age so badly. Shut up already! You know, I feel bad music is such a late segment in this show because out of everything, it's a game's music that brings it to life and gives it its soul. And music is critical in raising a good game and making it a masterpiece. And Xenogears is fully composed by one of the all-time greats of the industry, Yasunori Mitsuda. And there's even those two incredible vocal tracks bookending the game, setting up their long-running tradition of doing so. Then again, the horrible English dubbing for the anime cutscenes happened. They were supposed to elevate the game even further, but ended up being one of the only parts showing its age after 25 years. Bummer. Okay, sure, the gameplay is fascinating and ahead of its time, the graphics are unreal, the music is top-notch, and the story is one of the most incredible in the entire medium. But even if you're somehow not sold, there's still so much more to this game demanding your attention. Yeah, the game's overflowing with little moments like passing a young boy in an orphanage who recognizes the bell you looted off of that sewer monster, revealing that it was actually his poor father who fell victim to unimaginable horrors beyond the poor kid's comprehension. So all you can do is tell him nothing and hand him the bell. Or when you loot fallen wreckage and realize it's actually a ship you've already visited and even met some unique characters on, like a cute little fuzzball who you gave a badge set to. You'll find he made a shrine out of them and proudly displayed them there before ultimately passing away in the destruction. There are so many heavy moments like this, taking advantage of RPG properties in order to tug at your heartstrings as the story progresses, and the world around you just falls apart. I can't describe it in any other way. Sure is a shame the game released on the same console, let alone the same year as Metal Gear Solid, eclipsing it as the greatest game on the system. It's a bigger shame that Square never allowed the game to be properly finished, because I assure you, had they done so, Xenogears would have been the better game in every conceivable way. Those aren't fighting words, them's facts, ladies and gentlemen. The positive gamer in me has no doubt awarding Xenogears with a divine 10 out of 10. The game is an undeniable masterpiece, better than Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VII. Luckily enough for us, the Xeno series didn't die on the PlayStation and lives on to this day, regardless of Square not even allowing you to play it anymore. The critical gamer in me is so darn conflicted with Xenogears' unfinished Disc 2, as it's the only thing holding me back. But is it fair to fault the end product itself when its flaws aren't the result of the ambitious developers, but the greedy publisher itself? No, it's not. Xenogears deserves to be remembered as the monumental 10 out of 10 that it rightfully is. And that's the entire Xeno series! Well, except for Chronicles X, but considering porting a server-hinging MMO is an absurd undertaking, I've got a bad feeling it's gonna be dead forever. You're also forgetting about this one. Why did you even buy that? I mean, hey, you'd be surprised how much better it is than the base Xenoblade 2, but we'll save that for another day. So, what did you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Xenogears in the comments below. But if you think it's justifiable to blame the game for circumstances outside of the developer's hands, then you're just playing with yourself.
In a world full of constant, inescapable horrors, amidst the blazing wildfires, a deadly global pandemic, and widespread corruption, people have begun to lash out violently across the entire planet. They riot in the streets as they lose faith in their impossibly greedy landlords, CEOs, politicians, law enforcement, justice systems, and entire governments as their society crumbles all around them. And only one event is to blame for all this widespread dystopian pandemonium. The Japanese video game giant Nintendo has shut down their 3DS and Wii U eShops, abandoning their long-standing customers as well as their historic and unique libraries that can no longer be officially downloaded nor played in any way, much less properly preserved on official hardware ever again. done. This world has lost all hope in video game preservation, as their greatest champion has been sentenced to a fate worse than death. Our corporate overlords have condemned humanity's final hope of salvation, choosing short-term profit over the preservation of art and history at the expense of our one Lord and Savior, our King of Kings, our one squishy boy.
So you can't play Pushmo anymore.
He's gone because Nintendo killed him.
Pushmo was one of my final frantic purchases on the 3DS eShop before the greedy corporate giant pulled the plug on the entire system. And unfortunately, the game was so good, I'm now cursed with the knowledge that I'm one of the last people to ever get to play it. Well, legitimately, that is. What kind of monsters would shut down an online store hosting thousands of games unique to that 3D dual-screen touch-sensitive system with no alternative or plan to either preserve or release any of that lost software? Well, since Nintendo clearly doesn't want to take your money and considers the entire 3DS library obsolete, there's no longer any moral dilemma with installing custom firmware on your 3DS, downloading CIA files from a safe preservation website like the Internet Archive, and installing them directly on your system via the Homebrew FBI app. Let the record show that I did pay for Pushmo. Let the record show that it's very easy to hack your 3DS. When possible, I will pay for playing retro games, even if Square Enix wants to charge an arm and a leg for their Final Fantasy Pixel remasters. But Nintendo just effectively threw over a decade of unique gaming history in the garbage, so there's nothing wrong with being a digital dumpster diver. Yo-ho, me hearties! Anyway, with that out of the way, Pushmo rules! Yeah, this might just be the best puzzle game I've ever played. In Pushmo, you push and pull blocks, which is actually the European name of the game, by the way, pull blocks. How are you already off track about a puzzle game? Sorry, anyway, you can push and pull large colored blocks in up to 3 spaces out from a large, flat, freestanding surface called a Pushmo. What, you thought this little guy's name was Pushmo? I bet you thought Zelda's gonna go rescue the princess and Metroid's gonna go shoot some aliens too. Nah, this little squish ball is Mallow. So Mallow's goal is to reach the trapped child at the top of the Pushmo by cleverly pushing and pulling the blocks in a way that allows him to ascend the increasingly complex structures. He can only jump 1 block up at a time, or across short gaps, and also can't move any block that he's currently standing on, but you can rewind your actions a bit to undo any recent mistakes. And that's it. That's the whole game. And it's brilliant. This game is so simple to pick up and play, but also super creative with its level design that makes each new stage super interesting. You'll eventually get colored ladders and warp pipes and colored arrows that'll pull out all blocks of that color to the max, and this is only increasing the complexity of the puzzles, making the gameplay that much more engaging. And once you beat the main campaign, you'll unlock new Nintendo-themed levels where you play on NES sprites repurposed into Pushmo levels. Now, those sprites were never intended for that, so some of them are a little more maddening than others, but it's still really cool. Except I've beaten over 20 of them and I still haven't seen a single Metroid one yet. There is one, you're just not that far yet. But it does suck when you spend like 10 minutes on a stage and realize after it's too late that you needed to move a block like ages ago in order to win, forcing you to reset the entire puzzle and do it all over again, where you completely forgot how you even managed to get that far to begin with. This game makes me feel like an empowered genius when I solve some of its crazy puzzles, but also like a complete imbecile as I seek out a step-by-step guide for stages that stupefy me for like half an hour. Pushmo looks pretty great for being so simple. It actually makes me wish we got this game back on the N64 or Super Nintendo just to see how this same idea could have been done back then. Though not quite as intensely bizarre as something like Katamari Damacy, Pushmo's got this really unsettling cutesy aesthetic just to disturb you a little as you fight to make a chubby sumo wrestler climb the world's most inefficient staircase. The game's also developed by Nintendo's own development studio Intelligent Systems, who are well known for making great games ever since the NES like Fire Emblem, Metroid, WarioWare, Advance Wars, and Paper Mario. So these people do know their stuff. They basically make Nintendo series that tend to get forgotten. And here we are talking about Pushmo. We can skip this segment, right? What, are you concerned about spoilers? Of course not, there's just nothing to say about it. So Mallow is heading to Pushmo Park when the local unvaccinated brat stomps on a reset button, trapping children all inside of these physics-defying Pushmo walls. And since the only other bystander is a prehistoric geezer, Mallow begins to save the trapped children one by one, chasing the troublesome twerp all around the park until he finally saves all of the kids and confronts the jerk. But it turns out the little Tide Pod muncher was trapping the other children because he was lonely and didn't have any friends. So everybody forgives him and they all skip along home happily as the credits roll. You know, I was mistaken, that was worth telling. Yeah? Even for a puzzle game, that was pitiful. It's fine, though I do really love the 8-bit mixing with the modern themes. You work so hard saving each kid from their trans-dimensional displacement that the success jingle becomes the most satisfying part of the game. Also, the Nintendo murals play a retro version of the main puzzle theme, and that's pretty cool. How do we sell a game you can't even buy? Here's a friendly reminder that it's very easy to hack your 3DS. Oh no. Hey, Nintendo abandoned ship, so climb aboard and loot that sweet booty. If you're gonna be a pirate, this is some pretty optimal booty.
Yo-ho, a pirate's life for me!
I bought this game! The positive gamer in me rates Pushmo an outstanding 10 out of 10. This is the best puzzle game I have ever played, and I highly recommend you give it a whirl. You can even check out its sequels Crashmo and Stretchmo if you find yourself needing Mo. That was terrible. I am so sorry. The critical gamer in me gives Pushmo a strong 9 out of 10. I'd call it great value for your money if the bilge-sucking company responsible were even willing to accept it anymore. Just because they don't care about their own library doesn't mean that we shouldn't. So batten down the hatches, raise that Jolly Roger to play and preserve these games yourself and keep them from becoming forgotten. Because dead men tell no tales. But what do you think? Tell us how your positive and critical sides rate Pushmo in the comments below. We've been marooned from the incredible 3DS library with no choice but to emulate or hack our way into playing its digital exclusive software like Pushmo. Because if you don't see these games as worth preserving, then you're just playing with yourself.